no sunshine. IBNX.
All right, everybody, welcome to this Friday edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my correspondent,
Simone Cherie.
Kyle Andrew.
And Shahid.
All right, so I have to say that I get, because I have NPR, CNN, AJC, and USA Today, I have gotten more messages about breaking news than I get text messages. I feel some kind of way about that.
I believe it.
I don't think that's normal. That can't be normal. I'm like, I cannot grasp why I get more news alerts than I get text messages. First, it made me two types of way. One, it made me scared for my life. And number two, I was like, I'm really boring. That I get more news alerts than text messages.
It could be a small combination of both of those things. But to your credit, today is a very big news day. Very big news day. So locally, globally, it's just a big news day. And I feel like January's been kind of sleepy because we've been stalled on so many different fronts. And now I feel like all of this is erupting at once almost.
It's unnerving.
It is. It is. It's
absolutely.
the last Friday of the month.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, really? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Today's the 20th. Oh, good
Yeah.
Lord. Okay, so this is going to be one of those speedy years. Because we already out of January.
Right.
So this is one of those speedy. All right, so for everybody who has all these goals and stuff, you have to make sure that you put you get them accomplished expeditiously, because you're not going to have a lot of time, because we're already on January 25th, and I could swore yesterday was New Year. I was in New Year's service.
Right.
So you might want to accelerate
Yeah.
your goal plans.
Should be 1/12 done.
Okay, like you are, yeah, you
Right
should
now.
already be like halfway done with it at this point. So we have Kyle back in the studio today.
Yeah. I
so
took off for like 2 weeks.
I thought I was got to fire him. I didn't know what was happening.
I had to work. I had
Look.
to actually like make money.
Look, we all work and make money, sir. So I don't want to hear that crap. But
He
he's
was on
back
furlough.
today. So okay, yeah, we was getting ready to put you on leave. So all right, Simone, what we got?
All right, we're going to talk, we have national news we're going to talk about, of course, because it's day 35 of the shutdown, but we'll get to that a little bit later. There's also some really big entertainment news. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the Hulu documentary about the Fire Festival that we can get into in just a little bit as well. Also, New York has passed a landmark abortion law, the most aggressive abortion law in the country. But right before that, we should probably talk about Venezuela. So Venezuela is one of those countries that's been a part of this big border crisis, and the country's in the middle of falling apart, like, as we speak. It's a breaking news story right now.
They don't have Castro anymore, do they?
No, but they don't have a president. In fact, they have two presidents right now. So that's kind of what's been going on with Venezuela.
Okay.
So that's part of the issue. We're not talking about Cuba. We're not talking about Mexico. And those are the countries that we usually are discussing when we talk about the border crisis. But Venezuela and Honduras technically are the two countries that are in the middle of like the biggest economic collapse of this century, meaning since the 20th century. So it's that bad that people are having a hard time coming across food. Water is scarce. People are looting. So when something like that happens in Venezuela, basically the House Speaker, so they're Nancy Pelosi, the person in that position actually has the authority to elect themselves. That would be like their next in command. So that person has done that, but the current president never actually stepped down. So right now Venezuela has two presidents, and the country's spiraling out of control.
How is that?
How is that? Yeah.
Because
how is that?
it's,
How's
it's
that
just like
possible?
somebody moving in and you stay put. It's the exact same idea.
Yeah, but they don't have a constitution that warrants that one person's out.
Right. But that doesn't mean that person's going to get their stuff and go quietly. So
They
that's
give them an
basically
option? Like, what?
what's going-
What? Wait.
That's what's going on right now. So 20 people have been killed as of this morning. They were shot to death by security forces from pro-government groups and groups that are housed by the government. According to credible sources, this is being reported by CNN right now. So the new leader, the opposition leader, Juan Guaido, has basically stepped up. It's his job to dethrone the president, Nicolas Maduro. Nicolas Maduro was elected in a lot of ways people consider unfairly. So Nicolas Maduro required the government employees to vote. So he mandated that people voted, which, you know, is not really a free or fair election. He also runs the election. So it's almost like the Kemp Abrams situation going on, where his office actually administers the election results. So the international community believed that he was unfairly elected in the first place. And now that Venezuela's had so many problems, it was state of emergency, essentially. It was time for somebody else to step up, and he has not gone anywhere. So right now there's
I-
protests in the streets.
I can't get there. So
Wow.
your term in office is over.
Yeah.
But you decide that'd be like, well, you know what? I can't say Trump won't do that. If he does not win 2020, he probably like,
Sounds
well,
like
I'm not
something he would do.
leaving, and you have to go on the West Wing because I'm staying in the East Wing. I can't.
But I bet Melania will be gone. Because Melania, speaking of, we didn't get to talk about this. Melania has not always been president during this shutdown. She's taken 2 trips
Yeah, I saw that.
over Christmas when this first started. Trump was like, okay, I won't go anywhere. She was on the first plane to Mar-a-Lago, golfing, chilling. So I'm pretty sure even if Trump decides
she
to stay,
doesn't-
she will be gone.
She doesn't do anything. So I
She's
mean, at
ready
this
to go.
point, does it really matter if she's not there?
I'm just saying.
But I do feel like they take digs at her, and I do feel like she's actually a pretty woman. I have to give her credit. She's actually a very pretty woman, and wasn't she a model at some point or something like that?
Yeah.
So I mean, she's a very pretty woman. So they dig her a lot, but when it comes to fashion and the way she looks, she's very pretty.
Yeah.
But as far as a first lady goes,
It's just not the
She's done the
united
bare
front
minimum.
we're used to seeing. You know
I
what I
think
mean?
she knows not to speak after we caught her stealing Michelle Obama's speech that time.
Yeah.
She hasn't said much.
well, she
after
really
that.
should have fired the
And that
writers.
really- I was
She
gonna
could
say that was
have
not-
she could have fired the
that was
writers and called
bad.
that a day and just saved it. Actually, she could have spent that story by firing them. Like, yeah, I didn't know, but I fired them, and as a result, I'm this bigger, badder woman. So bring it.
looks bad.
Like I don't know.
It just looks bad. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
So apparently we cut ties with Venezuela, or he cut ties. The outgoing president cut ties with us.
I'm not surprised.
So yeah.
There's trade agreement deals that we've had with a lot of Latin American countries. Trump considered to be unfair. Like we were basically carrying the lion's share. So a lot of our kind of retaliation towards those countries has been to make everything much more expensive. Mexico has been really, really hurt by that, but economically they're the strongest of South and Central America. But they've been really hurt by that. I think the peso is worth like 20 single dollars right now. Like I think 20 pesos is about $1. That's the worst that the peso's ever been valued at. So they're in a lot of trouble, and they're economic leaders of the entire area. So if that gives you some perspective there.
Well, apparently Russia was condemned for backing him, and
I'm not
and they
surprised.
said that it was everybody else getting involved because apparently it's become a big worldly issue, rightfully so. So Russia, of course, backs the underdog. Quotation marks, those that can't see, and said that everybody was violating international law, and it was a direct path to bloodshed. So,
Yeah, it's just I really feel bad because when we think about the migrant caravan situation and talk about all the immigrants that we've seen influxes of, everybody who's been seeking asylum, basically a lot of them have come from Venezuela and Honduras, maybe some Mexico. But those have been the 3 big countries we keep hearing about. And Venezuela in particular has a lot of gang violence. There's a lot of problems with cartels that are basically running lots of those areas, recruiting people that if you don't work for the cartel, you get killed by the cartel. Economically, there's just not a lot of options. So, but to think that now where we are with the border, where essentially the administration is saying that no one else can seek asylum, they're basically shutting down that process slowly but surely. It's gone from, okay, you can seek asylum, and then we'll deal with the paperwork on the back end, to, okay, now this has to come on the front end, you have to go through the system, to now this is criminalized, and unless you can prove it, and you may actually be held in a detention center, to now, okay, you can seek asylum, but you can't do it on American soil. Now it's actually being pushed back to our, to the U.S. ports of entry that are throughout Mexico.
But
So
see,
I feel
here's
like
the
it's getting
thing.
further and further back.
So here's my thing. So what happened to the kids in cages?
I don't know that all those kids have been reunited. I'm pretty sure the last time we talked about this, all those kids had not been reunited with their families.
This is my point. Now, a couple of months ago, we were talking about kids in cages.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that I had to go, whatever happened to those kids in cages? This is what our culture
But
has
there's
become.
new stuff every day.
But I'm just
every
saying,
day.
this is what kids in cages is important.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have not kept up with that story, and I can say we because I follow the news religiously and have all the alerts on my phone, and I've seen nothing about these kids in
You
cages.
make them sound like a rock band.
That does sound like that should be a group. All right, kids in cages will be coming to the stage.
I'm copywriting that.
You would. That actually works, but it's a testament to where we are. The fact that we're always looking for some new cause to support and rally, and then after about a couple of months, it dissipates. This is what I'm saying about this popcorn culture we live in now. Because I said a couple of months ago, everybody was absolutely outraged about these kids in cages and being tried in courts. And now, not even 4 or 5 months later, I'm going, well, whatever happened to those kids in cages?
Because it dies down and then bigger stories come out. Because I think after that, then the whole bomb situation happened.
What bomb situation?
Where they were sending
Right, all
bombs,
the
all the
bombs to all the CNN
Democratic
centers.
Senate.
And,
Oh, yeah.
the Democratic officials.
So they
Yeah.
take priority over kids in cages?
Yeah.
But then there was the kids who actually died. Like the reports that there's 2 kids who have died, I guess, within ICE custody. Like the parents and the kids made their way through the deserts, and the kids were dehydrated and just died. And then it was like, okay, now there's kids actually dying.
It's too much.
Look, with all these media outlets, somebody could have held that story down. That's all I'm saying. Everybody wants
Yeah.
to break a story,
Yeah.
and then once they break it, they move on.
Of course.
At
And-
some point,
To that point, too, though, had those kids been reunited, that probably would not be a story because that's good news. Do you know
but
what I mean?
we know we,
Yeah.
we all knew they
Like,
were not
so
going to be
that would have
reunited.
been
though.
too positive to
It's
just
like,
show.
Yay,
Yeah.
everything happy ending time.
Yeah,
But
but-
Yeah, but the likelihood of that happening was not very
When
high, so
somebody
it should have
keels
been a
over,
story.
then they'll be there.
I'm just saying that the fact that I had to ask about these poor kids in cages, not even 5 months later, that concerns me. That
Yeah.
nobody held that story because I know it's ongoing, and I know those poor kids are still in courts and so on and so forth. But I assume because the courts are backlogged from this foolishness, yeah,
But
One
Ricardo,
of the viewers says America has ADD. Which is
Dang.
pretty-
it actually
pretty much
it's reality.
but I mean, Ricardo, this is 2019. That is so 2018. We have to move on. That's what people are trying to do nowadays.
That's what
Move
we call
on.
it?
Yeah, moving
to the
on.
next big moving vehicle.
Oh my God.
Maybe we should segue to speaking of not taking responsibility for what's going on with the Fire Festival.
Okay, that's all y'all because I don't know nothing about
All
that.
right,
So that's all y'all.
It's a Hulu documentary that just came out in this past week. That
Oh, but before you do that though,
Yeah.
I just want to shout out Hulu for dropping their subscription prices from 7 to 5.
Wow.
But that's
I'm about that life because
Okay.
I have Hulu and Netflix. Netflix is going up, Hulu is going down.
Netflix is
So,
going up.
So you don't have live TV on Hulu because
Why?
that price just went up.
yeah, I know. I don't want that. Why do I need that?
It
If
was
that's
awesome.
if that's the case,
because people are trying to dump their cable providers. They don't want the Comcast.
but
of
that's
the world
what,
and
I
stuff
think
like
that particular subscription costs $45. That's
now,
the cost
but
of
it
cable.
was $40.
That's the cost of cable
No,
almost.
it's more. It's more, and you have to buy the equipment and
That's a
if you
one-time
want-
fee.
No, you have to lease it.
When
Every
I had
single month.
cable was about
And when was this?
Whoa.
About-
She's talking about your age,
about,
bro.
about
No, I'm
two.
just
No, she
saying.
meant how long? Like 2 years ago.
Because you
That
have
was
to pay per month.
that was before the kids moved out. But I'm just saying, if I'm gonna pay for live TV on Hulu, I might as well get cable because cable, when you factor in, because it's a bundle. Once
Mm-hmm.
you factor in the cost of internet, which my internet alone is 50,
Mm-hmm.
and then the cost of a subscription to Hulu is 45. That's 80 something right there. That's actual cable.
Yeah.
So why would I pay for that? That's dumb.
There's so much you can get on live TV.
It's so much you can get on cable. If that's the case,
What
Yeah,
about
but you gotta
internet?
pay.
The internet is your best friend. Go on a different website that looks a little bit suspicious, and then get your whatchamacallit, your TV. I thought that's what we all do. Oh,
No,
just
that
me?
sounds
Just
like
me?
You have
that
viruses
sounds
on your
like
computer.
Pirates. Yeah. That's the easiest way to get viruses on your computer.
I'm just saying, if I'm gonna pay $45, I still have to pay for the actual internet provider. That's probably gonna be another 40 or 50. That's already almost $90. I might as well just go ahead and kill the couple of middlemen that are in the middle, and just go ahead and get cable. At least they can bundle it, and I can call it a day.
I guess. Okay, but so if you have Hulu, then you know that you have access to see this Fire Festival documentary, and there are pieces of it floating around on YouTube too. Basically, the Fire Festival was a part of essentially a big scheme. They're calling it one of the greatest schemes of the 21st century, where socialite Billy McFarland and Ja Rule, who co-founded this company, agreed to put on what was supposed to be like the most epic festival you've ever heard of.
What's it called?
Fire
Fire Festival.
FYRE. It was supposed to take place at a private island in the Bahamas, off the Bahamas, excuse me. They flew you out there. It was going to be catered. You were flying, not only were you flying private, but you were going to have a concierge, a driver, access to a villa, catered chef,
How much does that cost?
between $10,000 and $25,000 a head. Between
people
$10,000 and
signed up
$25,000
for
a
it?
head. Over
Rich
800
people.
people signed up for this
Okay,
ticket.
are we talking about the average Joe?
No,
Or are we talking? Okay, then I don't really care.
These were exclusive tickets. We're
I
talking
don't
about
really care. I thought he was
Beyonce,
talking average Joe.
Migos. I mean, this was supposed to be the concert of the century. Who else was supposed to be on that?
Kanye West.
ticket?
Wait, were
Kanye
they
West.
actually confirmed, or somebody just
So,
said they were
so we're
confirmed?
getting to that. So this was anyway. This was very hyped up. There was models promoting it, not just average models with decent bodies. We're talking like Kendall Jenners of the world that were promoting this festival. It was supposed to be headline packed. And it was just a total and complete disaster. And it ended up bankrupting a lot of small businesses on the island because they basically had to deal with a small refugee crisis. Only the refugees were rich white kids.
Yeah.
Then when they
my
got
God.
there, 300 people had no place to stay. Those who did have a place to stay were living in disaster relief tents. You know, those big white tents that you see pitched up in those tragic photos near tsunamis. They had, forget the foie gras and filet mignon. They were serving crusty burgers with cold French fries.
Well, I'm
There was
dead.
no electricity, no plumbing, no internet access. And because of the influx of people and there was no way to get out, the airport actually had to keep people on the island. They couldn't let people leave right away because there was just nobody was expecting that kind of traffic. It was a disaster.
Okay, this is where I put a pause. So with this is where I have a problem with people in technology. We use technology for everything else except what's important. So nobody bothered to do all the research to make sure all this stuff was legit. I don't understand.
But how could you do that? Like, think about it. Like, it's in anticipation of a festival. So by the time they saw all this, it was too late. The pictures they had online of the site, they weren't actual pictures of the site. They were Google stock photos. Nobody knew that.
You can find that.
Nobody. How?
Because if you like,
they're telling you venue, we're ready, party time, 10 days left, 9 days left, 8 days left, and you're seeing all these different pictures.
But was this the first year of the Fire Festival?
Yeah, it was the first time it had
I don't
ever
think I would've
happened.
gone to the
That's the thing, because it wasn't but this was so heavily promoted by so many celebrities. It's not the kind of thing, and you pay that kind of money. It's not the kind of thing that you would even think to second guess because they had these fake photos leading up to the day of.
Well, yeah, but what if you call the hotel?
Villas.
Did they have the hotel information?
Private villas. These were private villas.
Oh, see that right there. I'm like, yeah, I'm not.
But when
everybody has a phone
money,
number.
But when you have that kind of money, you're expecting, and so this was like a big social media push. There was websites, there was infrastructure, there were bots and staff members there to respond to questions. And on top of all this, on top of the fact that the tickets were $25K a pop, they had exclusive bracelets for the event. So you have to pay $8,000 for a bracelet, which would basically be your wallet for the event, because they said, like, listen, this is different. This is like we're creating a world for you, a city here. So if you want drinks, if you want to go out, restaurants, before, after, whatever, you need to use our bracelet. Because he had to get more people to send more money, or they could not literally even get water.
I can't.
They gave him
let me say this. First of all, I don't feel sorry for these people because these are not average Joes. I don't have $10,000 to lay around to give on a first go round for some. It sounds like some Atlantean city that nobody can get to except by motorboat or ferry.
People donate their children for Beyonce tickets, let alone to go to a private island.
But yeah, that would have been an issue. The fact that Beyonce didn't say anything about it would have been my first. Now wait, Mother B didn't say anything about this, so are we sure she's gonna be here?
Yeah, because Beyonce does a lot of press in anticipation of her concerts.
Yeah, but I mean, you have certain promoters that would look. The kids that are in the Beehive. They know everything, all things beat.
I feel
so
like she would have posted at least one Instagram.
She'd have said something.
Even the people are saying that it looked real. It looked real for all intents and purposes.
There's not enough research.
Unless it was something that you knew, like a venue that you knew. There was no way to know on this island, exclusive island, that when you got there, there would be nobody there to pick you up, and you'd end up on a school bus
again, I don't
with
care
100 other people. You would never know.
Again, I don't care because these are not average Joes.
Hold on. Joseph, can you play this clip? We have a clip of so we're talking about escaping responsibility. And this was debated yesterday or so, I think, on The Real, because they're basically talking about whether or not the face of something usually knows what's going on or whatever. Like, these events are not always, owned by a celebrity. This was co-owned by Ja Rule, but a lot of people were saying that, like, he didn't know all the inner workings and stuff like that. But this documentary had a very interesting clip of him that I'm just going to let Joseph play, talking about what happened.
Come on, guys. There's a lot of smart people on this fucking phone call, man. Let's think of how to dig ourselves out of this shit,
man. This is him talking about it.
We didn't kill anybody. Nobody got hurt. We made a mistake. We'll get past it.
I mean, granted, nobody died, but we did flat out lie to the public about what we're giving them. I mean, that's fraud. And that's not okay, as a company operates.
That's not fraud. That's not fraud. That is, I would call that false advertising.
That's the same thing.
All right, so the mere fact that that he said that's not fraud, but it's false advertising, you do realize. Actually, Ja Rule, I'm gonna make it simple. They both start with an F. So there's probably some connotation between the two.
So
of
you
them.
effed up.
Yes.
Point blank, period.
But that is a legitimate question, though. Should we hold people, and let's not even say celebrities, should we hold people, leaders, who you allow people to use their faces to package certain things and they go under, should we hold them accountable? Should they know that this stuff is going on?
Watch.
Yes, because let's all pay attention to this thing. Because I remember 2012. Remember Coney 2012? When everybody decided, give to, those children soldiers and stuff like that. Oh, my God, I feel so sorry. But nobody's really going to look up the events that happened. And then you guys are just going to put in money to this thing. And then the guy just ends up, getting out naked and just going on to the public and just going off with himself and stuff like that. You remember Coney 2012? That campaign where
What is it?
Coney 2012. It was that campaign that everybody got so sympathized because, Coney, the malicious warlord in Africa and stuff like that. It's getting these children, making them go out to war and stuff like that. And then everybody's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to pay money. Let me do the right thing for once and pay money to these people and stuff like that. And honestly, I'm just like, bro, do you know anything about this organization? 2, when this thing actually started. And 3, like, any information prior before this. But then it was like, nope, everybody's just like, nope, I'm just going to try to do the right thing for once and not even research this thing. Next thing you know, like, let's say, like, a couple weeks later, the guy ends up getting rich. That actually supports the whole, like, oh.
Oh, you're talking about, like, Ponzi schemes.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
I mean,
It is illegal.
another question I have is, are we so desperate to be VIPs that we're willing to spend $10,000 and $12,000 for special bracelets, red carpets?
People are.
I don't need all that.
You don't need all that?
Well,
If
you're
I go
rich,
to a-
Kyle, so
I'm not rich.
You're rich, so I mean,
I'm not rich. But my other question is, why is Ja Rule not in jail, or Bill McFarland? Like, how?
Right.
'Cause
Well,
he's
Billy
celebrity.
McFarland is. So he was sentenced to 6 years.
Oh,
Ja,
okay.
Ja Rule was not. He was not sentenced
Not even
any time.
sued by
No.
anybody?
No.
No.
And they co-owned this together. So the thing is, and even up until the very last minute, like the things that they were going through to try to make this thing happen were crazy. Like the event planners on this show, like they all look like 90, and these are young people because their hair was falling out with like all the things that kept going wrong. Like they had to build these sites from scratch. They were like 6 weeks out from the concert. They didn't have a brick on the ground. Like they were panicking. So anyway, and they didn't have the authorizations that they needed for certain things. They were trying to get water in at one point. There was a whole truck full of water. The lawyer for the organization was actually blackmailed into performing sexual favors to get this water because they did not have the release for the water. It was a $125,000 release that they did not have filed in time to get the water. He was about to do some ungodly things for this water.
I mean, I guess the question is intent. Was the intent to defraud people and get money,
Yes.
or was this a legitimate concert that went
Depends on
wrong?
who you ask.
It was
Ja
the first.
Rule,
I feel like they wanted to. Their intention was good, but I feel like something along the way went wrong, and they didn't tell anybody about it in time. So somebody messed up, and they just kept on promoting it, and
Right.
now Bill McFarland is
Right.
in jail.
They sold y'all a dream. Y'all got caught. Y'all got pawned.
sold
It is
y'all a
what it
dream.
is.
I mean,
but the fact that Ja Rule said that was my thing. That was kind of like, okay, well, maybe not. I mean, I really did think these were just people who were in over their heads until I heard that piece that we just heard, because it's like, okay, so you're going to call it false advertising and you don't think that you should be held culpable? That's totally different than like, oh my God, we really screwed up.
I wonder
That's
how he
very,
got away.
very
How did he get
different.
away? That's the question. How did he get away, especially if you're, well, I guess it boils down to paperwork. On the company paperwork, was Ja Rule one of the incorporators, or was it just the other guy?
I think that on paperwork they were both in the same position, but I think because of the footage and the proof of how everything went down, Ja Rule didn't have a hand in any of the actual logistics. I think his name was on it, his face was definitely on it. I don't think he had his hand in any of the logistics. I don't think he was part of the hiring, the planning, any of that. So I think he was able to escape for that reason. But I don't know if anyone ever pursued him. I just know that Billy owes people upwards of $6 to $10 million, like between all the different people who never got paid. There were contractors on the island who were working day in and day out to try to build these villas, like overnight, who never got paid. Just bad. It was just bad.
What did they end up building instead then? I mean, they have all
They
the
put together
tree houses.
as much as
They built tree houses, and they'll sell that next year. We have a tree house. You know what? I'm going to market that. We having a tree house festival. We're going to live in the woods. We're going to climb up trees. We're going to live like with the Swiss Family Robinson. We're going to live up. I think I can sell that too.
That's the question.
We're going to serve vegan
What's
food,
the-
which is just going to be tree limbs. We're going to serve vegan food,
False
tree limbs with
advertising.
ranch.
That's false
You know,
They could have just put it as this. It's like, oh, no. This isn't false advertisement. This is just an alternative lifestyle.
I mean,
Yeah.
hey, at this point, anything you can spend, you can sell.
Lord.
So I just,
They had those kids. They kept the alcohol coming and hoped that nobody would notice there was no shelter. When it started, that's exactly what they did.
which was fine Friday night until Saturday morning, and
right.
everybody was sober again
Right.
and realized they were hungry
Right.
and homeless.
And $30K broker.
Oh my God!
Mommy, I wasted
So anyway.
30 grand.
It's just a lesson that people have to do a little more due diligence, a little more research. I do agree with that. But I also think, if you think about how we do our research now, we type in something in Google. If Google feeds us back like, hey, this is it. There's 800,000 people here. 20,000 people have liked it and retweeted it. There's these people going, those people going, those people going. Everyone that you know in your circle is going. You see Kendall Jenner taking pictures in front of it. You see other official people taking pictures. That tends to give you the idea that this is legitimate. Like,
But
you
I
see
wonder if-
celebrities in front of it.
But I wanted, because most of those celebrities won't do it for free. So what were they getting out of the deal?
Money.
Money.
Well, where'd they get money from? Who paid them?
They're people.
They got paid.
They're fans.
They got paid.
Well, no, that means they either had to get a cut of the influx that comes in from
Right.
registration, or somebody was
I'm
outright
sure
paying
they got
them
paid to
to
promote it.
Wait, I want to tackle this because you just said like a second ago, where it's just like, all right, these people from Hollywood are being represented so that way it can be legit to us. But we have to remember, Hollywood is all like smoke and mirrors. Like this is all like, it's what they want to feed to us and stuff like that, and yet we buy into it.
Right. So other scams that you should be conscious of that Billy McFarland tried to perpetuate even before and after.
He got a track record?
He had a track record of scams. This is when he was on probation for this situation.
Wait,
and he was literally trying to create more hustles to pay back people he owed. So the two other scams that he unleashed, the biggest one was a company called VIP Tickets, where he was selling tickets, and he didn't use his name on this company, of course, because he figured that would be a big red flag. So he had other little minions.
Oh, I'm about to
doing
say,
this
because
for
if that's
him.
the case, then you should. It's like mugshots.
No, right, no.
Okay. That would be my next question.
He was not the face, but the company was emailing people. Some of them were on that fire festival or in that circle. So people with money, basically, if they wanted to spend between $1,000 and $10,000 to get like Met Gala tickets or to go to a Taylor Swift meet and greet. Now, this is a situation where it's like, come on. Taylor Swift doesn't do meet and greets. So one quick search on Google will tell you that she has stalkers, so she doesn't do meet and greets. But people were paying for that. He made $100K off of selling Met Gala tickets, quote unquote.
Hamilton
The Met Gala is
tickets.
not open to the public. Not open. You can't go. You have to be invited. Right. Hamilton tickets. I think 220 or something like that, like either front or backstage or meet the cat. They don't do that. So that's the kind of stuff that it's like, okay, you just worked over your credit card information. But he was targeting people specifically for this VIP experience. It just goes to show what people will do.
I tell people all the time, and it goes across the board. It's like I was looking online at a church ministry that was having some event, and they were selling VIP tickets. I was like, Jesus, we do that at the church now?
Wow.
The saints want to feel that important
Tell
that
the church.
I had to.
Say the name of the church. Say it.
I will not, because it wasn't just one.
So-
but my thing is, being saved is no longer enough. That being saved and being a superstar in Jesus' eyes is no longer enough. Now I have to have an event and sell extra tickets with a higher cost so that the saints can feel important enough to be VIP.
Man,
The
I got
good
you
old
an early
church.
premier access to heaven, bro. I got you.
Well,
I
you
can
know
get in
somebody
there
was selling.
early. I can
Somebody
get
was
you in
selling
there
tickets to
early.
heaven.
So wait, how come you get a VIP section?
Wow.
Somebody was selling tickets to heaven. And fools actually brought it.
That is crazy.
Fools actually brought it. So again, I say, are we that desperate
Blasphemy.
to feel that important? Because mind you, the church saints, all they're gonna do is either do one or two things. They're either gonna rope off some of the pews on the left side and say that's a VIP, or they're gonna let you sit in the balcony and say that's VIP.
That really is all it is.
So
That's all it is.
when it crosses the church boundaries, we're too far left.
Was there somebody special there, like a special guest? Maybe they wanted to be closer to a celebrity or somebody.
The superstar is Jesus. I don't care who's coming outside of that. And I adore
true.
Kirk Franklin, but I don't care if
That's
Kirk
true.
Franklin coming.
Right.
If
Tasha
he's not
Cobbs.
Jesus, Tasha
Yeah.
Cobbs, I'm not
Or
paying
Todd
another
Delaney.
$20
Yeah.
to get a VIP at the church. Who does that?
I
Feel
thought that was
right.
what ties were for. Like you could just put in the
Whoa,
money.
whoa,
just
whoa.
like,
Wait,
No,
wait.
no.
We're not about to do
Stop
that one.
that. No.
That is not what ties is for, sir. We're not doing that. The point is, when we cross these boundaries and Jesus is no longer the superstar and I'm paying an extra $20 to get closer to Tasha Cobbs,
That's the
and I'm
devil.
not saying Tasha Cobbs did this, so nobody say
That's
that.
the
I
devil.
adore her. But I'm just saying a gospel elite or celebrity, that's a problem for me.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a problem for me.
You don't feel right in my
But on that note, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to have more with hot topics and current events on the Leadership Blend with the host for Carl D. Rice.
Call him out. Call him out.
I want to stay south of the river with the chains and the gold. We could be out here together, but you had places to go. Watching the sunshine lace the gray. I don't know why you wouldn't stay. You should come south of the river, where the loving is gold. You should come south of the river. This is where it all starts. I think that we could stay here forever. Lie on the roof till it's dark. And when the last bus pulls away, I swear that I almost heard you say I should move south of the river. I want to get to know. I want to get to know. The river.
All right, everybody, we are back on this Friday edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo Rice, and my correspondent,
Simone Cherie.
Kyle Andrew.
And Shahid.
All right, so when we left, we were talking about VIPs in churches and this need that society has to feel important to the point where we're willing to pay upward to $10,000 and $12,000, which we saw for this Fire Festival debacle with Ja Rule and this other dude. I think we've got out of hand. And but before we get out of that, I will say that that's also my friends are probably they know how I feel about this. So as somebody who's working on an actual real doctorate, I have a problem when I see honorary ones or people just use the title doctor who just ordered it offline. I have a problem with that. And I feel like people want to feel important and have people call them doctor when you have not done the legitimate work. So it's just another example to me of this desire we have to feel important. Now, granted, having degrees and stuff does give you a level of prestige depending on what arenas you're operating in. Because, you know, I have mine. I'm very proud of my 4 degrees, especially when I open my student loan envelopes. But, you know, it is what it is. All right, but let's get out of that. So let's get out of that.
Okay. There was just, I mean, you could just say the same thing everybody else said.
Actually, no.
Before
we get out of that.
Ja Rule said to defend himself, he said, I too was hustled. Like, despite the
Well, now, actually,
despite the clip we just heard, he said, I too was hustled.
Ja Rule is close to being an average man, because does he really have any money left? Because I don't think he didn't go behind the scenes like most artists do. So does he really have any money left?
He said he was hoodwinked.
I mean, look, he ought to be thankful he didn't go to jail. Like, well, he's already been to jail before, so I don't think it's really a big deal, per se. Actually, while we on this honorary doctorate, I want y'all opinion. So how do we feel about honorary doctorates? I'm just curious, because y'all are all younger, especially you two. Y'all are younger. Y'all do know what an honorary doctorate is, right?
Explain a little bit more.
All right, so honorary doctorate is where a prestigious school will give somebody like, I think they gave Felicia Rashad one, Bill Cosby one, Oprah got one, and it kind of says that we recognize the work that you've done in a specific field to the capacity that you're kind of, in essence, an expert in that field, which exerts a doctorate.
What field did they get their doctorate in?
Media. I think it was media.
For Oprah, it was media. But like Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard, and he just like 2 years ago or so got an honorary bachelor's degree for something.
Okay. Well,
in the engineering field.
So it kind of says you've done the work in the field. So we'll quantify that against academia to kind of show the equivalent. So what you would have done in school, you've done with hands-on experience. So we want to honor you. Also, colleges use it to rope folks in and say, oh, well, Oprah has a doctorate from us.
Right.
They do that to rope folks in. Actually, you see Greek organizations do that too. Sometimes they'll I can't remember who they done it, so I don't want to call them names. So I don't want to get crucified by my friends who are in Greek. Like, the AKAs didn't do that.
Yeah.
But they'll do that. They'll bring somebody into the organization. They'll make somebody an honorary AKA for the work they've done, so on and so forth. So they do this to kind of enhance their organizations, so on and so forth. So what do y'all think?
I mean, like, if you've done the work, I understand how frustrating it might be to you who you put time and years. But
A dissertation is no joke.
If you've done the work, it's not. And that's why I'm still contemplating grad school, because I have friends that are doing it. And I'm just like, all right, then they've got like 10-page papers due in 2 nights. And I'm like, that's not for me. But if you've done the work, and I feel like, Oprah and who else has gotten one? Felicia Rashad. They've over the years, they've shown their understanding of the field. So I think that it's fair that they get, some recognition.
I don't know, but I like the way you articulate that. See, that's what happens when you spend time at the leadership blend. You learn how to articulate really good. That was a good articulation. Shahid.
Oh, so we're coming on to me now. All right, fine.
Oh, make sure you're talking to that.
Do you really want my opinion on this? Do you really?
Because I know if anybody has an off-the-wall thought, it'd be you. So let's hear it. Let's have it.
Oh my God. Okay, fine. All right. The way that I honestly feel about it, it goes both ways. Where it's just like, truth be told, I'm like in between of it. Where it's like, say for example, you didn't actually go to the school. So it's pretty much them saying like, all right, we want to sponsor you and stuff like that. We've seen that you did the work and stuff like that. So let's just give you this doctorate degree and stuff like that and just hopes that, all right, we could refer more people over to us and whatnot. To one extent, it's like, okay, I'm not going to lie. I mean, like, yeah, they did work outside of your school and stuff like that to do it. So I'm not going to knock you down. I'm not going to knock them down, but it's just more the fact of the principle. Like, why are you giving this to them? Because, I mean, obviously enough, they don't need your certificate. They don't need it. You just went out to them and you just pretty much was like, yo, we'll give you this, and then like, oh, whatchamacallit, see if we could work out something. And to them, it's just like, all right, I got nothing really to lose, and plus it's just an extra bonus for me, so it's like, why not? Run it. Let's go with it.
All right.
And I think that makes sense. Before we move on to something that I do think is really good, that's kind of more of a women's issue, you talked really briefly about teacher protests, but there's a tech worker protest that I also think.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't get to cover that when it happened earlier this week.
Oh, this ought to be interesting.
That was on Monday.
Like so, IT people who make six figures almost?
Who make a lot of money. So Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Uber, which there was an acronym for their names. I'm trying to remember what it was. If it was like GAF.
Big Brother.
What?
Or UFOG, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, so most of these people live on those payrolls. There's a lot of 20 and 30-somethings that gathered in Brooklyn and also in Seattle to do a tech worker protest, basically in solidarity with people who make less money in those areas. So companies like that, especially Amazon, have been, and Microsoft, get a lot of, not going to say get a lot of slack, but are responsible for a lot of the reasons why those areas are more expensive to live in than they used to be. So we hear about gentrification all the time, but in this case, is like imagine gentrification squared in these areas, because these companies build places where people can come and work, and then highly qualified people, highly educated and well-paid people come to work. Everyone else can no longer afford to live there, and it's kind of happened across the board, especially in tech firms where people hop out of school and making 6 figures or so. Those houses and those rental prices have gone up 250% in San Francisco in the last 15 years. 209% in Seattle in the last 15 years, basically making it unlivable for anybody who's not working for those companies. So essentially creating like little tech worlds that are creating lots of poverty. So there's disparities between their colleagues and like the surrounding neighborhoods that people have begun to notice. So the New York Times kind of talked about this protest. It's basically, again, full of 20 and 30-somethings. He's kind of calling it a tech worker rebellion, this writer is. And the way that he described it, it's that there are lots of people who are, although millennials and highly qualified and making good amounts of money, will not be placated by free massages and avocado toast in their corporate campus kitchens at the stake of their brothers and sisters who also live in the same neighborhood. So they're having a big panel discussion today. It's going to last between, well, it's actually starting now, so it's supposed to last between noon and 5 p.m. It's going to be streamed from the Seattle location and from the New York location. I don't know what's going to become of these protests.
Wait, so I'm trying to grasp the issue. So the issue is that entry-level IT people... I'm trying to grasp it. Entry-level IT people are mad because higher executive-level IT people are being wooed into moving into their areas and jacking up prices because they can afford to pay more.
The 3 concerns that they've talked about are working conditions for contracting employees, so lower-level employees, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is just equality and wage equality. and the quality of living that exists between them and the other people in those areas. Because remember, there's gentrification happening. So in a sense, people can no longer afford to. They know they're displacing people, and they're basically not able to, I guess, cope with the fact that they're displacing people. And they did mention the ethical use of AI and all the other sorts of technologies that these companies have come out with, and data and all the sort of privacy breaches. These companies have been in the headlines a lot in the last year. So Facebook has, Amazon has, Uber has, self-driving cars and killing people, etc. So these are workers who are basically saying we're no longer going to not pretend that these things don't affect us and that we're not enabling them by working there, I guess. I don't know how long the protests will last. They are technically still on payrolls. I don't think these are people who have quit. I think it's just a question of them taking a stance and saying that, we don't support this and we want these companies to change. Also on the panel is going to be an activist who was a part of the anti-war demonstrations from working at IBM. Her name's Joan Greenbaum. A couple of people who attended the Women's March should be there as well for this panel discussion that's going to be streamed. So I know we do a lot of, there's, I guess, a year of protests that we're entering into again. I know 2018 seemed like it was the year of the protests. I feel like we're starting off this year as the year of the protests.
We're not even into February, and we already have protests and people antagonizing.
Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of their issues, but
it's odd.
But it's about separation. It's about okay, just like the last situation. It's how far can you separate yourself from the existing crisis? Are you just going to continue to say, well, I'm just a little engineer, or are you going to own everything that comes along with working for these companies? And I do think it's cool that people feel responsible and they're not, pretending to be just sort of victims on the wheels of this machine. But at the same time, I support those machines for the most part. So
IT gets.
I thought you'd be great about that. I thought you would be like, see,
what from what
Amazon
aspect?
is one of those companies.
Oh, look, I make no qualms that again, I feel like Amazon is going to be the demise of the world when it comes to AI, artificial intelligence, because again, I feel like they're Daystar, and I can't stress this enough. And when it happens, Simone, and we're living in bunkers and drinking water out of teacups, I'm going to bring you back to this day on January 25th, 2019, when I said that Amazon was Daystar and that their AI was going to take over the world, and realize eventually that they don't need us to operate. There you go. They have it.
But what about his whole divorcing that he's going with his wife? I mean, he's not going to be the richest, and some of his property is going to go to his wife. So, I mean...
We're talking about what they do. I'm not talking about him personally.
We're talking about splitting a $150 billion fortune. So he is about to be really struggling. But speaking of that, Amazon is now testing out delivery robots. So in one city, and there's workers accompanying them, they're testing out delivery bots, right? This, I think, will help to offset some of the ridiculous $15 an hour wages that they were forced to pay all their workers.
Well, we're not about to do.
Going to have
what
robots.
What we're not. Actually, no. You know what? No. We about to have a real good. We about to segue back into minimum wage, because now we got the two millennials and the Generation Z in the room, because we always going at it. I want to hear their opinion. All right, you two. So y'all are up. Minimum wage. Should it go up or should it stay where it is?
Where is it right now? It's like $8, $9.
No, it's not even that. It's $7.75.
Oh no. You can't even live off of that. I can't live off of that. Or I mean, you know what? It pushes people to do better for themselves. So, you know what? Actually,
that's my boy.
Minimum wage is like for people like six. I'm not rich.
You're rich in character.
I'm not rich.
Remember, boss. Lead correspondent. I just want to toss it out there.
Minimum wage was meant for like teenagers, 16, who's working like summer jobs and things like that. Maybe somebody who's in college and has assistance from like their grandma or their parents. But you're not supposed to be working minimum wage and still be in like your 40s or something like that. You know.
Wanted to be like that.
There are people who are doing that though. I used to work at the airport. I'm not gonna tell everybody's business, but there are people who are in that situation and they're doing their best to like make money. And they're working two jobs and things like that. So I don't downplay anybody's downfall. However, I don't think that minimum wage should be like $15 an hour.
And you should hear what you say.
I'm not gonna lie, this is really weird only because I have a homeboy who's in New York right now, and they just raised the minimum wage to $15 and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that won't matter in New York because their cost of living is ridiculous. So that'll be that. They'll make it $70-$75 here.
Because I mean, truth be told, the way I always saw like cost of living wise. All right, fine. The way I always thought of cost of living wise, is this better, Ricardo? I hope.
Yeah. Okay. Microphone etiquette 101.
Okay, but the thing about minimum wage being increased is like, to be honest, I always thought about it like this. Like, yeah, you get like a couple more dollars into your paycheck and stuff like that, but doesn't everything have to balance itself out in a sense, like with all like the price of living and everything else that you do? Like, if your paycheck goes up, that means milk and other things have to go up too and stuff like that. I mean, it's
But it's going to happen regardless.
Okay, then you. Okay.
Inflation is going to happen regardless.
Okay,
So
sure.
that's my point. You're never going to stop inflation. So at least give the people who are really struggling a fighting chance. Now, I have pondered this because I'm tired of fighting with you and Double R. I have pondered this because I'm tired of fighting with you and Double R about this. But I have pondered this, and yeah, there should be some disparities on who gets this 15.
Oh.
I'm not going. Shut up. I'm not getting into the boy salt and the fries. But there should be some disparities on who's automatically getting this 15. But at the same token, if we can't stop inflation, I know that your famous line is that it's not our job to try to fill the gap. But at the same token, do we really want to have this huge divide between the have and the have-nots? That's my thing. And if we don't at least try to put a Band-Aid on it so it doesn't get worse, then what's to stop us from becoming some medieval society where people are literally living in villages and camps and tents in the backyard, and people are living in grandiose houses and mansions? It'll happen before you know it.
I'm just so pleased there's been some headway in this conversation. That's at least that you can see the fry salters do not want $15 an hour. I think that is incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, 2019 is going to be the.
I cannot stand you, and I just want to make that distinction. I'm just saying. That's my thing.
Well, listen, I'm all for people protesting individually. I believe in protest. I believe in the First Amendment. So if people want to protest and take their 20-something butts out of their high-paying jobs in this near recession economy and decide that it's worth it to them to protest, do your thing. Would I? No, absolutely not. Simone Cherie would absolutely not. I just don't believe equality can be faked. I just don't believe that. I do believe in getting yourself credentialed. I do believe in some of the great programs that Facebook actually owns. They have a micro business program right now for people who, for small business owners who need to maximize using Facebook ads, who can't afford them. They teach you how to use their tools. I mean, there's just more coming out every day.
Where is that at?
It's been available for 3 months now. I was gonna say I'll send you the information to it too, because they actually have in-person trainings in some cities, but it's online all the time. Where they're trying to help people use their technology better and make money off of the technology. Like they want you to they at least, and this is for me, they at least don't want to be accused of just sucking the life force out of everybody's business. Like if Facebook is taking over and people are losing their revenue because of Facebook, Facebook is trying to help you to use Facebook because people are on it, and you just need to learn how to use it if you're gonna make money. Yeah. So it's that simple. But good for the tech workers and whoever else.
Again, this is the second story we've covered today where I don't have a whole lot of sympathy. I get it, but most of those IT guys, even at an entry level position, are making $50,000 and $60,000 out the gate. So I'm sorry if you're crying about your cost of living going up because people with more experience than you who are already making.
No, it's for people who are poorer, for lack of a better word.
Are IT people really poor?
No, they're doing it for people who are poor. Like they're not working. Like they're protesting in solidarity with people who are poor.
So it's not affecting them.
I hate using that word over and over.
It's not affecting them.
It's not for them. Like the protest is actually like, listen, we're in protest. Like, you need to do something about this, basically. So it's not that they feel like they're hurting. They're just trying to take some responsibility, and not like I said, just keep on chugging along, making their money while everybody else is supposed to leave.
That's nice of them.
Yeah, but honestly,
rich people are so nice.
Yeah, but that is the issue that nonprofits run into, because sometimes you end up being the voice for people who don't want to voice their opinions, and it's not that they can't. They're complacent where they are, which is in essence why I stopped doing my nonprofit. I was like, okay, well, I'm going harder for you than you are. Like, how does that work? Because now I'm out here, trying to pay the money and get the sponsorships, and you're back here kicking back, and I'm forcing you to utilize the programs and services that are only really benefiting you.
Yeah, I think it's just about having multiple voices at the table that could be helped. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's, if it's only the same squeaky wheel over and over and over again, people tend to get deaf to that. So I think they're just trying to add their voices to the conversation too, so it's not all the same tax bracket complaining, that sort of a thing. Okay. So if you don't want to move on to the teacher piece, teachers are a whole different tax bracket. There was a New York abortion law that we could probably cover in this little bit of time that we have. So New York has put measures into place. They're trying to protect access to abortion if Roe v. Wade is overturned. And Roe v. Wade, the 1973 hallmark law that enabled abortions to be legal in the United States, has basically been... I don't even want to say it's been threatened, but Democrats have definitely been worried about it ever since Trump took office, because Trump is very pro-life. And he made statements on his campaign trail about punishing women who sought abortions because Yeah, he made statements to that effect. I don't know if he would actually do that, and he's definitely been pro-choice in the past, like years and years. He's been a lot of things in the past. That he's
I was about to say.
So anyway,
all day.
But ever since that conversation came up, and as he's continued to elect these conservative judges to the bench in different areas, and even in the district court that Kavanaugh just left, a conservative judge has been elected. So there's all these fears that in different areas, abortion is going to be stricken down, that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned for some reason or another. So New York went to take some level of precaution that just in case that happens, the state of New York would always have access to abortion. So they passed a law, that does two big things. It enables access to late-term abortion, which right now, abortion was not accessible, is not legal after 24 weeks, unless, I think just period. No, if the fetus was viable. So that means if the fetus could potentially live outside the womb, it would be illegal to have an abortion after 24 weeks or 6 months. That has been overturned now, so it doesn't matter whether or not the fetus is viable. Abortion is permissible up until the day of birth. Also, doctors don't have to perform it. Physicians' assistants, nurse practitioners, midwives, anyone who's got a basic level of medical qualification can perform the abortion. So those are the two big things right there. Viability is a very touchy word. This is a very touchy subject. Like the Women's March just passed, and this is the 46th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. So I feel like this is a very political legislative push that's just happened. A lot of people have come out excited about this, saying that we've made a very aggressive push. A quote from Governor Cuomo was actually that this is the most aggressive abortion law, and he's saying that in a positive way. When I heard that, I thought it was very negative. But there's criticisms of this as well. State Assembly Representative Nicole Malatakis said that we need to be honest with the public and say that this bill doesn't just simply allow Roe v. Wade. It expands abortion up until birth, which you cannot debate is not murder. So a lot of people feel different ways about this. What I will say, when people mention viability, because viability is a big part of this bill, is whether or not a fetus is viable. And viability is based on a number of factors. Whether or not a fetus can survive outside the womb, a lot of times is based on not just their health, but their age, their weight, also race and gender. Female fetuses tend to survive outside the womb if males will die, and black babies have a slightly better chance of survival than whites and other races. But to me, this is very touchy outside of normal abortion sorts of laws, because it's like literally up until birth. And that's such a difficult thing to me. There are things that could go wrong there, even as just in terms of someone's health. Having an abortion that far along.
Well, apparently also it says that medical doctors are not the only ones allowed to perform abortions. Right. So what does that mean exactly?
Midwives, nurses, practitioners, yeah. That's the second piece.
That's concerning. Like, I don't want anybody. I mean, my thing is the state of a woman when she's seeking abortion. Like, she's already probably frantic, trying to decide what she want to do. She feel like she's out of options. So anybody that says, hey, I can do that for you, you're liable to be like, you know what? I just need this thing out of me. I can't take care of it. The headspace they're in. And to say that you no longer have to go to a doctor to get this done, that...
But why wait up until 9 months? So why not just have it instead of just why would you abort it at 9 months?
Headspace. Where people are in the headspace. If you, and let's use the most extreme example. So let's say I'm gonna get crucified. Just don't say it anyway. Let's say there's that Laquira and Kim are having a baby, and and I'm just throwing those names out there because we laugh at those kinds of names all the time. They're having a baby, and everything's great, and then he decides he doesn't want anything to do with the baby. And he walks away, and she's almost at birthing point. At that moment, she's just like, "Oh my God, I'm by myself. I can't take care of this child. What am I supposed to do?" Adoption. Things you normally would not consider. Things you would normally not consider, and depending on where you live. If adoption is not the community you're used to, and you're not used to seeing that kind of stuff, so you don't think it's a viable solution, you're not going to consider it.
You also have to think about what happens in the interim. Like if you make a decision to have an adoption at the point of a contraction, there's not going to be a parent waiting there for you in the waiting room.
And that's a process.
So how long will your child be in the system, quote unquote, if they are ever to be adopted? You know what I mean? So
I think that's better than killing it.
Yeah, but again, like she said, if you're at the birthing point, adoption is a process. You don't just call up an adoption and say, "Hey, you got any parents just laying around because I'm getting ready to drop this load tomorrow."
but
that's not how that works.
But to be said, I mean that's a very valid point. And so the articles that I've read about this, I mean, you're either on one side of this or the other. And I think, but for a lot of people, even if you were in the middle, this is too far. A lot of people who even said, you know what, abortion, it's legal, it's been legal, it's going to stay legal. A lot of people feel like, look, 8 months, 9 months, belly button, we're kicking. That it doesn't sit right with a lot of people, even people who are like they support their pro-choice normally. I think fundamentally speaking, if you don't believe that a fetus is a baby, then there is no qualm here for you. If you genuinely believe that a fetus is not human, that it's not life, then it really wouldn't matter at any single point when you had an abortion. If you believe that, which is why to me, all the people that are now kind of surfacing in the middle, it's like, what do you really believe? What are you really saying? You're kind of saying that if there's no what? If it's not 8 pounds, if it's not 6, like, what are you really saying that you disagree with? Because technically speaking, it is still an abortion as long as a child is inside of a womb. So if it's okay with you at this level, what's the difference at this level? What makes that difference? Like, I think it's kind of forcing people to ask themselves that question. And I don't know if this is an expansion of reproductive rights at all. For a long time, abortion was considered like this big women's issue. And it was like when people said women's rights or women's issues, this is all they were talking about, which is really disgusting or disturbing. Yeah, disgusting to me as a woman, because this is not a women's issue. There are equity issues, there are pay issues, there are several other issues. There's the fact that we can't wear kitten heels as viable presidential candidates. We have lots of actual issues.
I like the way you segued into that. Like, I don't even know how you got there, but okay.
But we don't have, this to me is much bigger than that. And I think this is a question of when does life start? And I think people should really ask themselves that. When does life actually start? Because if it would disturb you to see a woman who was that large having an abortion, why doesn't it disturb you any other time?
Well, but then I think it segues to, like you said, it's connected to some other things. So for me, I'm not even gonna lie, I do feel like abortion is more of a female thing. I mean, it's just like when you look at the laws. When it comes to kids, most of the time, the woman has more of the rights to a kid. It takes a lot. Because I think a family, which I need to get her on the show, we have a lawyer that comes to the group I'm in, and she was talking about this. She was like, I think in Georgia, either men don't have any rights or there are not a lot of rights in Georgia when it comes to child care custody. So I'm like, the laws are kind of written around that when it comes to kids, that kids are more partial to their mothers. So when it comes to the birthing process and abortion and stuff, to me, it kind of is more lean towards women, because if I got somebody pregnant and she decided she wanted to abort the baby, can I really stop her?
Well, so I was going to say, there is the MRA. Like, there are men's rights advocates who are upset about that issue and the child support issue. The fact that 9 times out of 10 a woman gets custody of a child. It's very hard for a man to get custody. So there are definitely men on both sides of that. That's like, hey, that's my seed there. And if it's 9 months along and it's kicking, I may very well have a problem with you having an abortion at this point.
I mean, I would. I mean, at that... But again, I kind of agree. I was like, at that point, you've gone through 9 months. I just feel like any being that shares your space, your personal space for 9 months, especially once you've got to the ninth month, I can't see it. But it's the same problem I had with adoption. I'm like, adoption is amazing. My family had to do it, but the thought of a woman carrying a being and that being thriving and becoming a person in your womb to get to the 9th month, deliver it, and give it to someone else, I commend anybody that can do it. Now, there are parents that would love to have kids who can't have kids, so that process is amazing. But the thought of that, that's like me raising a puppy and it becoming a full-grown dog, and then me saying, well, I'm sorry, Toto. You got to go live with the McAllisters across the street after I raised you. I can't.
It's a lot.
I commend any woman. And again, if the alternative is you killing a baby or harming a baby, by all means, please give it up for adoption, because there are people who would love it. But the thought of me carrying and sharing my body with somebody for 9 months, and I deliver this child and I give it to somebody else.
Yeah, but again, so to Kyle's point, that is very, very tough. Mm-hmm. But abortion is one thing I will say, maybe slightly controversially, is that I do think that there should be a lot more clarity and realism about what it takes for an abortion. So like there are non-surgical abortion procedures that can be performed via tubes or pills at a very, very early point in a pregnancy, maybe 6 weeks, or very, very early point, 8 weeks. That's not the same for abortions in like a second trimester, certainly in this third trimester. We're not talking about taking a pill. We are talking about surgery. We're talking about surgical knives, surgical clamps, scissors. We're talking about an actual. So I kind of I think this is I'm not going to say it's terrible, but I do hope it's a really good moment for people to really think about when life begins. Because if I have to use something sharp to excise something from your body, then maybe that thing is alive. maybe that's not just a fetus or a clump of cells. Do you know what I mean?
All right, so we're not done with this. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get a little bit more into this because I'm actually kind of interested in this, and it's sparking a little conversation. So stick around on the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.
I was born a water baby, swimming with these times, the grooves that turn the gray to sunshine. 'Cause I will live through days that break me, swimming with these times, the grooves that turn the gray to sunshine.
I'm still trying to write the story as I see it. The trouble is when I say it, they don't believe it. They reckon I only say it, but I don't mean it. I'm trying to tell them I only say it if I can feel it. Cause money's tight, maybe tighter than it was before. I'm helping out on a mortgage I really can't afford. Family breaking north, I covered the trips abroad. Shaking up, making another loss on another tour. But what I done it for? To see my mother in the sun abroad. I run in the trouble that was coming for. My little brother got the hunger for. All the exact same pain that makes the rain in my stomach pour. So let me paint it broader. This for any dude who's got a daughter. Living off lines like your papa taught her. Ain't got no time to be coming for you. Go with the flow with this, run the water. Go with the flow with this. Go with the flow with this. Go with the flow with this.
Don't you worry, your leaves won't grow the same, and people might forget your name. Doesn't matter if they do. Don't you hurry, when the hot coffee pours will stain, and when the Uber left you in the rain, your time will come around to you. Despite the stress of spending so much time alone, 'cause this geography is keeping me at home when I don't know the way to go. I move with the flow of this running water, this running water. 'Cause I was born a water baby, swimming with these times, the grooves that turn the gray to sunshine. 'Cause I will live through days that break me, swimming with these times, the grooves that turn the gray to sunshine.
Go with the flow with this, run the water.
Going there. All right. How you doing, Miss Johnson? How you doing, baby? Fat old ass. Huh? Oh my gosh. Why would you say that? I got a son. I want that. I got a son, Charlie. I know you got a son. Listen.
I need me a sugar mama, old lady, foxy mama, sophisticated. Sugar mama, old lady, foxy mama, sophisticated. sophisticated. Old age don't mean nothing to me. Wise man said age ain't nothing but a number.
Why'd you say that?
Young girl, she don't give me jokes, so I'm references. Old lady, she ain't with the tech or the messages. Young girl, love dance getting sort of decadent. Old lady, tied up, she ain't even stressing kids. You can cook me a plate after we make ready to date. I ain't your man. You don't know your body yet. You don't know your body yet. I need me a sugar mama, old lady, foxy mama, sophisticated. Sugar mama, old lady, foxy mama, sophisticated. Old age don't mean nothing to me. Wise man said age ain't nothing but a number.
Let me holler at you. Little baby, little heart, I break it. I'm chasing me a side, not living. She paying for the wine, dine, and worry for my time. Might even deny my staying. No, for night I'm seeing, I'm just fly by. I take what she supply, my favorite. Anytime I see my line start ringing, for some part-time loving from the heart, I bring it. Young girl, she ain't even got that arch in her bag. Treat her special cause she know how to act. Young girl, never live in an ocean so blue. She just here for the view. When I need me a sugar mama, old lady, foxy mama, sophisticated. Sugar mama, old lady, foxy mama, sophisticated. All days don't mean nothing to me. Wise man said age ain't nothing but a number. Why'd you say that?
Tired of doing the same old thing every Wednesday night? Well, don't. Join IBNX radio host Jason Carey every Wednesday night from 8:30 p.m. to 1 a.m. for Wild Wednesday, your midweek turn-up. Wild Wednesday, featuring $5 Long Islands, $3 Jello shots, $2.50 PBR, and food specials. Wild Wednesday, with free arcade games, half-price bowling, and half-price kart racing. Wild Wednesday, featuring award-winning host and entertainer Jason Carey, Mr. Morning Coffee Swig himself, providing the soundtrack and the entertainment all night long. Playing your favorite hits of today and yesterday. Wild Wednesday with Jason Carey every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. Free entry for guests over 21 and $10 cover for anyone 20 and below. Wild Wednesday goes down at Andretti Marietta, located at 1255 Roswell Road, Marietta, Georgia. That's 1255 Marietta, Georgia, every Wednesday night. Pull up!
Are you an entrepreneur, high-profile influencer, or creative that wants to level up in your business? If you are ready to elevate mentally, stand out visually, and dominate digitally, the Brand Doctor has the remedy. As a highly sought-after mindset coach and brand strategist, she helps clients globally to hit the ground running. Contact www.moebrandstudio.com or email getbranded@moebrandstudio.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to this Friday edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my correspondent,
Simone Cherie.
Carl Andrew.
And Shahid.
All right, and joining us, y'all know this voice. Y'all know this is one of my favorite interns. Miss Michelle is in the studio with us. All right, so her timing is always interesting. It's always interesting. All right, so when we left, I'll let Simone, you reintroduce it.
Yeah, so we were talking about New York's hallmark law that they just passed this past week on the 46th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. New York, and like many other democratic states, has been worried about whether or not access to abortion will be protected in this current administration. We have a very pro-life president. He's electing conservative judges. So they passed a law that essentially, in the words of the governor, expands and codifies Roe v. Wade, ensuring that New York will have access to abortion no matter what. This two major changes as part of this long piece of legislation. The first one is that late-term abortions are now permitted. So formerly it was at 24 weeks that you could seek an abortion legally. At this point, it is now at any point during the pregnancy. So late term, meaning third trimester up to 9 months till the time of birth. Second piece to this is that you don't have to be a medical doctor to perform the procedure, as long as you are qualified to perform the procedure. So you could be a midwife, you could be a physician's assistant, a nurse.
I'm looking at your face.
I cannot get there. So now you're telling me, you're saying to me, I don't have to go to a doctor to get an abortion. So somebody can take a hanger and take a baby.
Well, here's
They
the
used
thing.
to do
Here's
that.
the thing.
They used to do
Here's
that kind of
the
stuff.
thing. They're not telling you that because, like, for your situation, it's irrelevant. But they're telling us that.
I'm just saying they used to do abortions like that. They would take, look it up. I'm just saying. The fact that I'm not a doctor is not restricted to just a doctor.
Okay, but here's the thing.
It's concerning to me.
With anything, right? With anything that is legal or permissible, you use discretion, right? And if you don't have that, I mean, my mom used to say common sense isn't common, but you use your discretion. Now, because anyone can now perform these, not saying that I agree with it, but if someone walks into the room, slaps on a glove, and takes out a coat hanger and says, all right, let's do this, you use your discretion, I would hope.
No, but if you're in a it's about the headspace. If you're mentally,
So I was
your
gonna say,
mental
give the
headspace.
example you gave before.
Like I use the example of two people, and I think I said Shaquira and Takim were having a baby, and they get. Those were the names that came to my head. I'm sorry, those are the names that came to my head. They're having a baby, and they get all the way up to everything's great. He's in it. They're buying cribs and they're buying cradles, and then they get to the 8.5 month, and Takim goes, you know what? I just can't do this. I'm sorry. I thought I could. I just can't. Now he leaves Shaquira by herself. She's at the 9th month, and she's like, I can't. She has no family, very little friends. She was only living off Takim. Now she's in a situation. She's like, I can't take care of this child because I can't even take care of me. The headspace she's gonna be in is just like, I can't have this child. At this point, adoption is not a real reality because that is a process. So you can't just call up an adoption agency and say, hey, do you have any parents on standby just waiting to get a kid? No, there's paperwork, there's medical records, and all this stuff. So now she's bombarded with all this stuff, and she's in her 9th semester. Now the only viable option to her, because of her situation, could be, I got to get rid of this child. She's not thinking about the fact this child is pretty much a full-grown child, baby, at this point. She's just thinking, I can't take care of it. I can't give it away. I really can't do anything else but get rid of this baby. So let's say she has no money to go to a real abortion clinic, and she goes to Mama Sue down the street who says she can do abortions. And she is in the same scenario you just described where she slaps on the glove, she pulls out a hanger and says, all right, baby girl, let's do this.
Oh, God.
What now?
So that was a lot.
But I'm just saying the headspace and the variables
that during this pregnancy.
That reminded me of some Lifetime movies.
The headspace that she's in at a 9th month with a baby, she legitimately cannot take care of her because she can't take care of herself. She has no family. She has very little friends. She would actually entertain. She's more plausible to entertain that situation. Whereas somebody who's in their right state of mind would be like, no, you're not. What is happening right now? Situations and variables will put you in situations that when we talk about abuse, there are a lot of women who are in abusive situations. There are not women that you would ever think would be caught in a situation like that. But variables and situations will put you in headspaces you would not normally be in. That's all I'm saying.
So do you think that this law is like kind of contributing to poor decisions that you might make in a state like that, in a mental state like that? Like, because I'm looking at the law right now, I'm kind of looking at what they did. For me, we were talking before break ended, and like the original law for me, that was a bit much. You said it was 24 weeks?
Yeah.
That was a bit much. Like, okay.
But to your point, you said this may be going on anyway. So you were...
Right. Like,
that's what you were saying.
And it is. Like, so you said she might be in a headspace to get rid of it. I mean, there were babies being found in dumpsters, like, before this law changed. So that was the thing. Like, that was... I mean, prom night dumpster baby. The joke came from somewhere.
Family Guy, because I remember that episode. The dancing baby jumps out the trash can.
The reality of that joke was birthed from like real life situations. It's dark, but it's humor.
Which on a segue, I saw. And I don't know where I saw that, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. There was a program that they were testing where there are baby dumping centers, and it looks kind of like a trash chute. and it's actually made for a baby. So they can drop the baby off. I think it's incubated. It alerts the fire department. They come get the baby, and they take it. And people were having a fit about it. But I was like, if the it's always about what is the alternative, and it's about the statistic. If the statistics in your state are extremely high for abortions and dumpster babies, why not find an alternate solution to the problem? And if that's a big issue in their state, and this is the alternative they came up with,
it's really hard to find research about this, though, like especially that's new. If you kind of just start looking up statistics about abortions and why people seek them, because so much of this is allowed to be anonymous. So you don't always know someone's reasons. The Guttmacher Institute, which is a former affiliate of Planned Parenthood, says that it's 1%, which is 15,000 people who seek late-term abortions, and the way that we've just described them, like 6, 7 month, 8th month, 9 month. And they usually talk about, it says financial stressors, relationship problems, or concerns about parenting challenges are the reasons that people seek those. They say sometimes it's a delay in pregnancy diagnosis. And if you've ever heard, like, I didn't know I was pregnant. If you ever watched that show,
I've heard
there
of
are
it.
people who don't know.
my coworker was like that. She literally just had a baby, and she didn't find out till she was like in her 3rd or 4th month. I was like, so when you were sleeping, a little hand went like this in your stomach. That
3rd or 4th month, I don't know if there's a hand.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Here's what I was saying, though, is that I think that this has pulled people who are in the middle toward the side of like, whoa, this is a lot. Like a lot of people who consider themselves to be pro-choice or like, yeah, they support access to abortions. The idea that up until the point of birth has, I think, pushed people to the side of like, well, listen, that's murder. But what I was saying is that logically speaking, you have to kind of, I don't get how the decision is made when life begins or isn't in like a real way. And that's like, I feel like if you really believe that nothing is alive until it's walking and talking on its own or whatever, then at what point would it matter to you? Like, I don't get how people work that through in their own minds, that at this level this is okay, but at this level it's not okay, because in my mind it's either alive or it isn't. It's either human or it's not.
I didn't know that was a thing until we talked about it today.
It's kind of like the perception being relative. Like, it depends on your perspective, and of course different factors will contribute to that, like how you were raised, your religion, things of this nature. I will forever be pro-choice, like forever, whether I agree with it or not, because for me, like I told you, the original law was a bit much. Like the 24, it's 6 months, it's the size of a soccer ball. Like, for me, that was a bit much. But if certain things happen, sometimes you find out, different reasons that people have late term. Your baby was going to be stillborn. It was going to have this major defect. Sometimes the doctor will look at you and tell you it's going to be alive for about 2 minutes and then it's going to die. And to be forced to carry that to term could be a bit much for a lot of women. And sometimes you just plain old want an abortion. Like, there doesn't always need to be a medical reason. Whether I agree with it or not, whether I would do it or not, I will always respect a woman's choice. So that's me. So when you talk about people being pulled to one side or the other, I think it really just, you have to take your personal preference and what you would do out of it and think about, as a whole, what do you respect more? Do you respect the life that's growing, or do you respect the woman that's attached to? Like, what do you?
And that's
agree
very
with
hard
more?
for me.
I mean, I didn't realize that this was a thing, that you deciding when a child is a child, when a baby
Well, that's
is
why
a
we
baby.
have the law. Like at 24 weeks, that's very specific.
Yeah, I didn't realize that
And every
was-
state has different. Sometimes it's 20 weeks. Sometimes it's it varies.
Well, who decides that?
Legislature does that. Well, and a lot of times people
Men
have
who will
their
never
own.
have a baby. That's who decides.
And that's why I'm kind of being quiet, because I know this is like not for us, and I get yelled at when I have conversations with an abortion.
Well, no, because I was getting ready to come to the guys anyway about your thoughts.
I mean,
but
so here's my thing. Like, you were talking about like different circumstances that people are in, but my issue is when like people do it just because, like, you're just laying around getting pregnant, and then you carry it to 6 months or 9 months, and then you decide you don't want it, so you decide to abort it. That's just like abusing the power to me, and I don't really agree with that.
I understand your point. My answer to that would be, why do women take birth control?
So pregnancy prevention.
yeah, it's
a
pregnancy
method
prevention too.
with like a percentage of success rate.
Because they don't
60?
want to get pregnant. There are way more reasons that women take birth control, especially as a woman dealing with a certain form of endometriosis myself,
True.
than just,
I don't know what that is.
want to get pregnant. Endometriosis is any issue that you may have concerning your uterus and your monthly menstruation cycles and things that are hindering that, and you may be super irregular, you may actually end up not being able to have kids. Like, there's a slew of reasons why you would take birth control.
That helps with that?
Yes, birth control
Yeah.
absolutely
It helps with a lot
with
of
that.
stuff.
It helps regulate your period. It helps, for some women, clear up your acne. Some women, it depends on the different side effects. And it does help pregnancy prevention. What it will not help is STDs and STIs. Please go get checked, Atlanta. Anyway.
Atlanta.
But here's the thing. Sometimes you take it just because you want to, because you're a woman and you have that right, or you think you'd want to have that.
Yeah.
Whether or not, especially with you as a man, like, I understand where you're coming from, but ultimately things of this nature, things in this scope, don't concern you because it will never be your reality.
All right, pause.
But
now,
I was gonna say, hold on.
Now
a minute.
the
What
segue
about
to
at the
her
8th month though, or the 9th month? Because like at this point, it's like you could be ready for delivery. Like, this is my seed. I'm about to have my first child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And at that point, it's like 9 months, and then he doesn't. I mean,
well, no.
she
But my
didn't
question to
create
you
it
is:
on
so
her
you
own.
feel like this is solely a women's issue?
It is.
You didn't necessarily feel that way.
No, I don't, because we're not asexual, so we can't create life on our own. You know what I mean? Like, we carry it. Like, that's
we
our
can
burden.
raise it on
The
our
first
own.
time this
Well,
is
yeah, but
being
so
what
can a
often
man.
happens.
It is what often happens.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it
mean
right.
that we create it on our own. And so to me, it's like I could understand. I feel like as a man, if it's especially at that point, 8 month, 9 month, I do feel like, hey, that I had a child coming. You know what I mean? I do feel like that would be taking something from him. Absolutely. But and more to that, it's like it's about how we codify things on the opposite end that I tend to like evaluate this. So like, legally speaking, if I was pregnant and I was in a vehicular accident, God forbid, and I did want my child, my lawyer, if he had any competence, would be seeking double murder for me, because that would be the charge, is that there were 2 lives taken. So the idea that legally speaking, I'm 2 people, but if I don't want my child, then I'm 1 person and I have a right. That to me is like, it's a discrepancy that doesn't make sense. And the fact that, like, if you go to the operating table and your heart stops beating, they say, okay, you're officially dead. So in my mind, okay, well, when a heart starts beating, you should be officially alive. Like, that's how we medically declare someone dead. So I think if we medically declare them alive, it has to be the same. I need some consistency in the way that we look at, like, what's life and what isn't.
Yeah.
Because to me, otherwise, it's like, it's just picking and choosing. And people wanting you to be here doesn't change the fact that you're here. There are a lot of people, God forbid, unfortunately, who just were not wanted, who are great people, but they weren't wanted. And so being wanted doesn't make you any less of a person, I don't think. It's just unfortunate.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I do agree with certain points. I don't think and I could be wrong, but I don't think there are very many situations where there's a happy marriage and the wife up and tells the husband that she's getting rid of their child. I don't see that happening a lot. What I do see happening is more so medical reasons. And like we mentioned before, this is the 1%, right? Like, because it's a small percentage of overall people who are pregnant, families who are expecting.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like that scenario is a lot less likely in the scenario that a woman may actually need to do this or may actually be forced into doing this based upon circumstances that she has now been made aware of or circumstances that have happened. I think that's just a lot more likely. Either way, giving women the freedom to pursue a choice that they feel is right for them, I think is the most important thing.
And so to push this a little bit further, there are statistics about this that are very old, because like I said, it's hard to find research on this, and I think this is like 2000 that I'm thinking of. But the number of women who were raped and sought an abortion was less than 1%. 1%, I think, at the most, of people who sought abortions. And in that same year, the number of women who got abortions, 50% of them, it was not their first abortion, which kind of triggered something in me kind of doing this research, because I think the argument that I hear very often is that it's such a gut-wrenching, life-changing decision, and it's like the hardest decision a person will ever have to make. But imagine if you've made it more than once, is it really the hardest decision you've ever had to make? And there's some people who are very cavalier about this sort of thing.
Well, the issue, because when I had my nonprofit, I had a girl who did that, and it's more so about the lasting effects, because in the moment it didn't bother her, and we were doing what we were doing, and she just had a complete meltdown. And I was like, what is wrong? Come to find out, she'd had an abortion, and it just hit her that she thought about, oh my God, I don't know who that child was going to be. And she'd had the abortion, I'm assuming, months ago. the lasting effects. It's like when you have, I've heard people who had abortion because the timing wasn't right, but then they have a child because they've got married now and then the timing is right. But now they have thoughts of their first child. Well, oh my God, I wish I had never aborted. Because now they've experienced the joys of having this child. It was like, oh my God, I wish I hadn't aborted the first child because I don't know what that child was going to be. I didn't know it could have been this. The lasting effects is the issue for me. It's like you do stuff. It's like anything else. You do it in a moment, but then later on you may regret it. And now you're talking about you took another life in your head. You think you took another life and you don't know who that life could have been.
I understand. I'm thinking about the lasting effects of raising a child in a situation that's not supposed to be in, not having the resources, not having the means or the environment to raise that child in. And then once you're placed in that situation, you kind of have a good idea of who that child's going to be, especially if they're raised in an at-risk neighborhood or an at-risk environment. So,
but see, that's that Planned Parenthood language. That's terrible language. Like, that's the beginning of their whole ploy. And the reason why there's so many of those clinics, or used to be, in urban areas is because they figured crime rates would go down if there were less of these sorts of people around.
That is very true.
And that there was documentation that this was their idea.
That's not what I'm saying at all, but I'm saying it is a reality. Like, and you can't deny the fact that sometimes children are born into situations where there's not enough resources to make sure that they even have an adequate life. Not even to give them everything that they want, per se, but even the basics that they need. And this can happen no matter where you live and no matter what race you are.
Yeah, but that's the kind of language that starts gearing towards minorities because that's going to be the argument. That
more than that, it puts a dollar value on life. Like it says, at this tax bracket, it's worth it to have this child, but at this tax bracket, it's not. Like this, it puts money on something that I don't believe has a value. I don't believe your life has. And there are people. And Oprah was born in, I think, in a wooden hut or something like that, in a shack.
She
was born in
she was in the country, but
she was born outside. I think. I don't think there was. She said there was no plumbing. I'm pretty sure there's no indoor plumbing.
Well,
but
yeah, she's from like the 1950s. So
we got one Oprah. Not everybody's gonna be Oprah.
Okay, but,
yeah,
you got to be Oprah to be happy.
Yeah, you got a lot of other people.
I'm struggling, but I'm happy. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have to be wealthy to be happy. Kyle's wealthy.
I think we get to.
I know, right? He's a golden boy over here.
We get to have these opinions because we are at a certain point in life, but there are people who live realities that are very different from ours, and we have to think about that. Like, and I'm not going to judge them for their choice based upon what they may feel is right or is not right for them at that time. My thing is choice. I want people to have that option,
so you
whether
think,
I agree with it or not.
But is it murder? Is the question. Is it murder?
I feel like the question is
perspective.
Because it's a choice.
It's in my business, but
is it murder? Because if we're talking about business, it's like, okay, nothing's your business. But if you saw someone like drowning and you had this is about like life or not. So if you don't believe it's life, I think
actually, but that's the good point though. So the question becomes, why was this even something that needed to be legislated on in the first place? Are we looking at it because it's considered murder at a specific time, or are we trying to regulate somebody's body? I guess that is the intent of the law. What is the intent of the actual law that's written as it pertains to abortion?
Well, are we talking about somebody's body at all? Because if you believe that life starts at conception, then you say we're not talking about a woman's body. We're talking about somebody else who's going to have their own social security number, their own blood type, their own gender. We're not talking about the female. We're talking about what she's carrying.
Life beginning at conception or not is still based upon your own opinion. And
that's
you
what
have
I'm
to
saying.
Take your opinion out of it because it's not about your opinion.
But it's not opinion. It's got to be a scientific fact.
You don't know.
It's got to be a scientific fact. It either is or isn't. So it doesn't matter how I feel about it. You can tell me that, like, I can call you anything I want, but you are what you are. So it's not how I feel. It's is it or not. I think that's the question you have to ask yourself: is it life or not? Is that a
laws
baby or
usually
not?
are made because they have an attachment to some other arena. So whether it be business, whether it be other aspects of the law. So again, I guess my question is intent of this specific law as it pertains to abortion. What are we trying to legislate exactly? Like, is it
they're
because
trying to enable women to have access to abortion but this is coming from the perspective that abortion is not murder. It is not. There's nothing in Roe v. Wade about we're allowing murder. That language isn't there. So the belief is that this is not murder because the belief is that these are not babies or humans or people. These are cells or
so
whatever.
Your concern would be it being about murder, about the taking of a human life.
That's the pro-life perspective, is that this is murder. This is legalized murder.
Because of the timing. So
no, period. They believe period.
So if the reality was that we didn't have these abortion laws and that pregnancies were carried out to term, What about the children that are now born? Okay, the baby's here, pro-life, you're happy. Do you care about what happens to it afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should be like those other countries.
Do you think pro-lifers vote like that? Like they care about what happens to the baby after it's born?
Vote like that? I don't know.
Do you think
Probably,
they support programs
I think women do. But I think that's our downfall.
You think pro-life women vote like that?
I think some of the women do, but I think the problem is we don't have enough of those resources in place. Places like France, like you get like a year or 2 years of like maternity leave. They have a nanny for you. They have daycare for you. They don't have any of these problems with regard to like how will the baby eat. They don't have to ask that question because the government ensures it at a ridiculous tax rate, and I do believe it's a hindrance to. But the point is, there are countries that are different,
and we absolutely have the resources to make sure everybody.
We do.
Eats. And we don't vote like that. We don't. And the majority of our country, after every election, time and time again, once we see the results, it's proven that the majority will vote in the exact opposite way.
That's true.
So you're pro-life, that baby's born, cool, you won, and now you're going to go to the polls and make sure that they don't have a fair education, that they don't have the resources that they need, that their parents cannot get on certain social programs, that certain social programs are cut, so that now it's even harder for them to survive. But that baby's born and you're happy.
True.
All right, so on that note, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about this. And because we have a panel of Generation Z, I want to talk about the candidates for 2020. So stick around, the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.
All right.
Through drought and famine, natural disasters, my baby has been around for me. Kingdoms are falling, angels be calling. None of that could ever make me leave. Yeah. Every time I look into your eyes, I see it. You're all I need. Every time I get a bit inside, I feel it. Ooh, who would have thought I'd get you? And when we're making love, your cries, they can be heard from far and wide. It's only the two of us.
All right, everybody, we are back on this Friday edition of the Leadership Brand with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my correspondent,
Simone Cherie,
Michelle Richards,
Kyle Andrew,
and Shahid.
All right, so as you see, we have a full house. I actually like when the interns are in here. They offer a different perspective sometimes. So I'll think about letting them, do something if we get Kyle to show up faithfully. But, it's all good. All right, so I think we're done with abortion. I think it's interesting, but this is my point. You can have two people of the same gender who have two different perspectives. And Michelle and Simone are actually sitting on different sides of this, which is quite interesting. But anyway, we're going to move into some interesting stuff. So normally me, Simone, and Double R debate as more candidates announce their candidacy for president 2020. It's always us, and we're almost around the same age in essence. When we have the interns, a lot of them are Generation Z, so they're in their early 20s. Some of them just graduated from college. So it's always nice to hear their perspective on things. All right, so I'm going to throw out names. And if I need to give a synopsis on them, then I can.
This is who you want?
No, I'm just the people that are more known that said they're running for president.
Okay.
So, all right, we're going to start with Elizabeth Warren. Thoughts on Elizabeth Warren?
I do not know who she is.
I have no thoughts on Elizabeth Warren.
Because you don't know who she is, you just don't have any thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts.
I was speaking about it over the break, actually, with a family member who works in Washington, and I asked her what her thoughts were, because she's closer to that environment, she's closer to the client, that climate, and she is under the impression, I kind of agree with her on this, that while Warren appears to be a great choice, she clashes too much with Wall Street. And because of that, it would make it very difficult for her to have any type of backing as a truly viable candidate, which I kind of agree, because, you know, I don't know the inner workings of, like, everything that goes on in Washington, but I would be inclined to think that Wall Street does run a lot of it. And if you're clashing with the moneymaker, then...
What about her as a woman? Do you guys think that that's a good thing? Do you think that's like
I think we talked
uphill
about
battle?
that. We talked about that before here. She was like, you said that she was too aggressive.
She's okay. So let me ask a question. Let me shape this differently. All right, everybody on this panel pretty much loves Michelle Obama, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, queen.
Why do y'all like Michelle Obama? Outside the fact that she's a black woman, why do y'all like Michelle Obama?
We share the same name. Like, it was bound to happen.
Wow.
Oh my God. Don't say nothing else, Michelle. You're banned
We
from this
run
room.
the world, Michelle's. We run the
I mean,
world.
she has personality. She's educated. She's easy to look at. God,
that was so shallow.
Really
I got very disappointed in you in that moment.
Yeah, I mean,
I got so
I
disappointed in you
Because he's so
in
much
that
like
moment.
you in that way.
I got so disappointed with you in that moment.
I can appreciate Michelle because she is not afraid to say what is on her mind. And while you will take a lot of flack for that as a woman in Washington, she will do it. Like, she stood in front of this entire country and reminded everybody that the White House was built by slaves. And people lost their minds and literally had to go research it. Meanwhile, we were sitting here like, yeah, y'all forgot about that? Like, all this that y'all, yeah, thanks, credit.
So my question is, given all of that, is the package what makes the difference? Is it the way she articulates what she articulates, or is it just what she says?
Michelle?
Yes.
It's both, because delivery is everything, and tactfulness is key, especially.
She's very well. It's not just that she
exactly
rants off at the mouth. It's that she has something. She says what she says in a very distinct way. She's not flippant like our commander in chief right now says whatever he wants to say technically, and we can't stand it. So
all right,
that's not enough.
And you could
It's
argue
the way
that he
it's put.
could say the exact same things, but if he added tact to it, we probably wouldn't even notice, and we probably
Yeah,
let
I think
it
so
roll off
too.
our shoulders.
So she's calculated, is what y'all are saying.
No,
Tactful.
charismatic.
How you got that out of that? All right,
That
so
was a sick little play on words. Y'all saw
he been being slick all day. I'm actually impressed. I'm actually really proud of Kyle. I'm really proud of Kyle. Like he's learned some things. All right, so to the boys, are you more inclined to date an aggressive woman or a less aggressive woman?
I like aggressive women. That's off back. I kind of like I like feisty women. I do. So like aggression doesn't scare me. So when you say that Elizabeth Warren is aggressive and she won't be a good presidential candidate because of that reason, I don't think that's a good reason to not.
Now, when I say aggressive, I mean like Elizabeth Warren is the type that y'all go to a restaurant. She's like, we're sitting at table 61. I don't want water. I want wine.
Wait, where do you get that from? Where do you get that
I've watched her debate. And she's very like she goes in.
I think
like
she's more like a Stern, like a Nancy Pelosi.
No,
like
she's
a,
no.
I don't think she's like a
Nancy
viewer.
Pelosi just got. First of all, Nancy Pelosi just found her backbone. Clearly, when she got back, because like I said, she's a lot of walking, a lot of talking. But the way she's standing her ground now, I've never seen Nancy do that kind of stuff. So she found a backbone somewhere. Elizabeth would have been like that from Jump Street. She's like, no, Trump, we're not doing this. You can go have several seats. I'm good. The American people want XYZ. She's just really aggressive in that regard.
So what's the difference between Nancy and Elizabeth?
Nancy is that old school women can be assertive but not aggressive type. Like
And
she'll
she's
say what
never-
she has
she's
to
not
say.
running either.
Huh?
She's not running either. And I don't think Nancy will run. Nancy
I don't
likes
think so
being
either.
House Speaker. She likes being the HBIC in Congress.
Yeah,
but
she's.
what about Kamala Harris then? Because she's the most recently announced, and I'm actually very impressed with all the press coverage that she's getting. Some of it's been kind of negative, but just with regard to who people have called her the female Barack Obama, which she's not.
That's just because she's a black female.
Yeah.
Yeah, but blackish as well.
Yeah,
she's Indian.
they're lumping.
You know what I mean? But she which
But I got to
actually
rep
kind
her
of-
because she is from the homeland. Sorry, her father's Jamaica. Jamaica.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say California.
Jamaica in the house.
Yeah, I'm about to say what?
Jamaica in the house.
Oh my God.
I'm Haitian. No.
Haiti, stay yourself over there. Haiti, stay over there. Jamaica in the house.
So yeah, and she's I think on the tactful side, but she's been kind of at the forefront of a lot of the conversations around women's rights, like with the Kavanaugh hearings. She was very vocal. She was very outspoken. with regard to legalizing marijuana. She's very outspoken. She wrote the First Step Act that the nonprofits that I work with worked to push and got passed to get about 16,000 people who should have been out of prison for crimes that have already been made legal, things like that. The crack cocaine disparity, she was ahead of all of that.
My only thing Hillary proved to us a couple of things. One, that experience doesn't count for the end all be all. That's one. Number two, kitten heels and pantsuits. People just want a little bit more. You got to have a little more class, a little more sophistication than that. And number three, that even with all the experience you have, you still have to be charismatic to be president. She proved those things. I can't say that Kamala Harris has that stuff.
You don't think she's charismatic? I think she's very charismatic, especially out of the people you just mentioned. Out of Pelosi and Warren.
I haven't really gotten the opportunity to really watch her.
Me either. Yeah. So I will say that, but
so I'll reserve my opinion until later.
But my issue with her is the same issue I had with Cory Booker. At one point, they were all the rage. Like you always heard that. That's what made me take notice. You kept hearing her name. You kept hearing his name. It was like, well, who are these people? You don't hear that now. At a time when you really have to have that. I think she's lost that momentum. It's great that you announced it, but I don't feel like the wave is as strong as it was when people were really talking about you, really having your name. Not to say she's not doing anything. Yeah. This has nothing. This doesn't equate to you not doing anything. It just equates to what exactly are you doing strategically to make sure, because it's at this point it's a social media game.
When we revisit this next week, I think you'll have a different opinion because she's been starting to do a lot of stuff.
So with Kamala Harris, because I actually have an article up right now on 8 top issues and what her opinions are on them. So what are the issues that are important to each of you guys? And then we can kind of go over how she feels about that.
Cool.
Because she could be a viable candidate. Her first, I'll start with healthcare because that's important to me because I think everybody should have access to healthcare. And I think that it's long overdue. We're the only first world developed nation, America, that has people dying and being plunged into debt after a broken arm.
Well, before you do that, though, because I hear this a lot. When we say access to health care, what exactly does that mean? Because anybody can get health care from someplace unless you have a pre-existing condition. You can get it. It's expensive as crap.
When you have that right.
Well, I mean, it is. But I'm just saying, on the other side of that, what does that mean exactly?
Affordable health care.
Okay, well,
you mean free.
Say that.
You mean
free and or
well, we've never had free health care, so
affordable. Yeah, but other countries do.
I know, but we can't desire something we've never had.
It doesn't take $10,000 to fix a broken arm. It doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't take $200 to weigh you, which is all you get in the physical. They put you on a scale. They stick a pen.
It doesn't take $150 for an administration fee, which is thus them taking Tylenol, putting it in a plastic cup, and putting it by the side of your bed. It doesn't take that.
Right.
Okay, well, I don't know what's behind the scenes when they're behind those charges, so I'm not going to say that. I personally don't feel like Verizon should charge me a customer service fee when I call in and pay with my credit card. What are you doing besides listening to me and writing it down?
Get an automatic payment set up.
I feel like
no, I don't want that because I don't know what my bill is every month. You're not going to be taking out $200.
Her opinion. So apparently Harris wrote, I believe that healthcare should be a right, but the reality is that it is still a privilege in this country and we need that to change. I can agree with that. I can absolutely agree with that.
Again, that wording, though. What do you mean by privilege?
Well, she talked about her support for the Affordable Care Act.
She's talking about how it is right now.
And how she was one of the first senators to sign on to Senator Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill. It was introduced in 2017. So I think she really wants
free, open health access to health care.
Exactly. No matter where you are, whether you live in the ritzy hills of Northwest Atlanta or whether you live over in Riverdale, everybody should be able to have health care and have it be affordable and to get the care that they need.
Wait, I have a question to ask about this. So wait, if you get this, are you willing to sacrifice your means in order to get this? Because that's always the biggest problem with people. You want this, you want that, but are you willing to sacrifice what you have in order to get it, though?
Elaborate on that.
Say, for example, healthcare. You're wanting people to either have free or affordable healthcare. Obviously, there's going to be something taken away from us in order to have this.
Probably just taxes.
Yeah.
It's taxes. That's how you
probably
would,
more.
But
yeah.
Consider this.
Y'all the Democrat.
In Canada, 13% tax. 13% tax, but social health care. They're not dying. There aren't riots in the street. I would absolutely.
They're a different type of folk, though.
I was about to say,
I don't think we want to be like that.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, that's Canada. That's Canada. I'm talking
you
about.
You say that like they're not right next to us.
No, but I'm talking about the American
they're
people.
Used to a different
system.
We're different.
But here's what I will say.
Did you say they Fruit Loops?
They some Fruit Loops.
Oh my God.
Canada, we love you. Don't mind her. We
the
love
thoughts
Canada.
and opinions are not reflective of those of the
Especially
leadership
the
blend
French
or its affiliates.
Thank you.
But here's what I will say. Healthcare, if out of the many social service programs that we do not need, healthcare would be a much better substitute. I'm not saying we should have it, but if we do have it, it would certainly be a much higher priority than all the other crap we got. All this other nonsense.
You know what? Wait a minute, because you keep throwing these words around. Name one of those programs, please. I want to hear this. Republican-ish.
Okay. Minimum wage.
Speaking of which, okay, so the economy.
It all comes back to minimum wage. It all comes back to minimum wage.
Open access to healthcare to get rid of that nonsense.
Yeah, but that's apples and oranges.
Absolutely.
I don't put those on the same playing field.
I think it would save money. I do. Get rid of that. Free healthcare, fine.
Well, okay, Harris actually encourages workforce training in order to prepare the people for the future of automation. So when you're going into McDonald's and you see like machines taking your order, so that could possibly replace minimum wage workers. So you might just get what you want.
That's a problem.
So, but what happens to the people that are working at McDonald's?
They have to learn how to robotics. Sorry, they learn robotics and then they'll learn how to get.
Do you know how complicated it is to learn robotics?
It's actually very simple.
It's simple to you.
It's a 2-course class.
It's simple to us. But I know people right now, they can barely get through math.
Coursera, Udemy, edX.
And let us not forget that math and science are not known strong points for minorities. We all know that.
First of all, I'm tired of you calling
it's
people
the truth.
minority. It's not necessarily true.
Not necessarily and not true are two different things.
Are taught. There are lots of free and very inexpensive ways to get degrees and certifications in engineering and lots of different types of STEM fields and in AI.
You
Coursera,
gotta have
edX,
a design. We
Udemy.
talked about a lack of passion on Monday.
It's not about passion. It's about necessity.
No, because I personally don't want to learn robotics.
If there are nothing but bots available, you will learn robotics or you will starve.
Well, most people will starve. I'm just telling you now. So then you got a bigger problem because nobody wants to learn how to do a robot.
I do think that Ricardo is bringing up a point because, like I said, we all get to talk about these things from a certain point in life, and you have to remember that not everybody has your same reality.
And nobody wants to be a survivalist.
There are still people growing up in this country where they don't have internet in the house. There's not even a computer in the house.
I do believe we need to fix that. We have a digital divide. Now that should be
how we gonna feel that?
That should be subsidized. A computer should be subsidized.
All right, now we cooking with grease. Now we cooking with grease.
She's trying
to
now we getting somewhere.
Not your cost of living.
All right, princess. So how do you suppose we fix that?
Amazon.
Subsidize. Give people a digital divide. Do that, and get rid of all the other stuff that you're subsidizing, like the subsidized housing. Get rid of that. Get rid of that.
Are you saying get people off Section 8?
Open the doors to access to knowledge and close the gimmies. Close all the gimmies and open the doors.
So you mean no more food stamps, no more Section 8?
I didn't say anything about food stamps.
You said get rid of all the hand-me-outs.
However, we also heavily subsidize the agriculture industry, and the agriculture industry is underemployed. Ergo, if we had more farmers, we would have less of a need for food stamps. So maybe people that are on food stamps could become farmers.
Okay, survivalists. So you gonna become a farmer?
You said if we had
so you gonna become a farmer?
If we had more farmers, we would have less need for food stamps.
I think agriculture industries are underemployed.
Maybe
if we were producing more
food,
we
would
would need less food stamps.
Hold on.
Wait, before you say that,
know that
when you can grow a honey bun from the soil, then I might legitimize your argument. I don't personally like fruits and vegetables like that. So until you can learn how to orchestrate a honey bun from a seed, I'm not interested.
Never hold public office.
You either, for that matter, because you be just like Trump.
You are trying to kill us. You're trying to give us diabetes.
I'm just saying, until you can learn how to grow a honey bun from a seed,
no one should ever eat a honey bun ever.
I'm good.
And I mean it.
So you never had a honey bun?
But here's the thing.
Never.
Here's the
you
thing.
should never eat a honey bun.
Then we're going to Cinnabon after we leave
America already has a huge food waste problem. We already make more than enough food to feed everybody.
I agree.
So producing even more food will not help feed everybody.
Well, you know what part of the problem is that, and then there's a nonprofit for this. They're called the Ugly Food Project. Because a lot of grocery stores don't want to put food on the shelf that looks ugly, like potatoes that are shaped like Robitussin or whatever. So there's an Ugly Food Project that actually saves wasted food. There really is. But the problem with food scarcity has little to do with anything but access, right? So the idea is that people have to become, you want as many people as possible to become money creators, to add value to institutions, to create value. Ergo, you don't have to subsidize every little thing. So as many people as are humanly possible to create some type of value need to create value. And one of the great things about AI and tech and all the other things that are coming up is that you don't have to have an incredible amount of outside skill. Like you don't have to spend 12 years in college or 20 years working on a doctorate, or you don't even have to be able-bodied to do a lot of this work. A lot of this is stuff that can be taught. So if we subsidize means for people to learn, then I think we can stop just giving people things they haven't actually earned.
So you think that people have
don't
to
like
prove
school like that?
You believe that people have to prove their value in order to have access to basic things that they need.
What?
Wait, repeat that again, please.
You said
people don't have to have value.
You said that people.
I didn't hear what you said.
So my question is: do you believe that people need to prove their value in order to have access to their basic needs?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh God.
To the extent that they can. Not
I need you
everybody
to move
can.
to China.
Some
So
people,
you see
not
the
everybody
moving
can.
capital. I need you to move
Some
to
people
China.
aren't able-bodied. Some people aren't. I understand that. I understand that. I mean, dementia will come for us all. I understand everybody can't create value at the
Speak
same
for
level.
yourself. As for me and my house.
Values are part of
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, I know everybody can't operate at the same level, but to the extent that you can, yeah, everyone should be operating at their maximum value and pouring into the
See,
pot.
I feel like I have to
instead of
give
just sucking it
examples.
dry
All right, so
from the
let me
bottom.
give an example. This is why I feel the way I feel about minimum wage and things of that magnitude. Because somebody who's worked in fast food, there were a lot of people in fast food who were old, and I mean like
And I hate
50 and 60 older, that if you were to say, well, robots are taking your job tomorrow, they don't have the capacity to go learn how to program a robot. Like, that's just not
And for those
at that
seniors,
age. Like,
for those seniors who are working in fast food, because they are rapidly replacing all of the teenagers and everybody else.
'Cause they're kinda
That's a
desperate.
shame. That's a
They
shame.
I
have
agree, but that's their reality.
They've proven their value. They poured into
I agree.
the pot.
I agree.
So what happens when the pot that they poured into says, "Oh, we don't have a bowl of soup for you. Like, we don't have."
Listen, I totally agree. I'm not interested, and I don't
Do
believe.
they go back to school and learn like
No.
robotics and all
No.
that? Like, what do they
no,
do?
I do believe that for the extent that they are alive, there will always be people who are interested in eating honey buns and fast food, and ergo they will have a job. I don't know why, but they will. But here's what I will say: we do have to cut the teat from somewhere. So the fact that Kyle and I are paying into Social Security and we will never have it.
Yeah, I agree with
will
that.
be
I agree with
us.
that.
There will not be any money left because you don't work.
Oh!
There will never be any money left. There won't be anything left. So my point is.
Whoa, she called me broke.
I did not call you broke. I did not call you
She
broke.
called you a non-contributing member to Social Security.
To society.
Yeah.
That's what she said. That's what she said.
She's coming for your neck, boo. She's coming for your neck.
I keep trying to tell y'all Simone is the queen of shade. Y'all keep trying to give that time to me. It's not me. I am not. That's her. She's the queen of shade. I didn't say it outright.
I apologize.
I didn't say it outright.
I apologize.
But you didn't set
That was
yourself up for that one.
That was a
You just- I'm
nonsensical
saying.
deviation, and it was away from my point.
I was actually
My
impressed. That was
only
funny.
point is that eventually we do have to cut this idea that like Social Security is so inflated because people were never supposed to live this long.
That is true.
And the cost of living was never supposed to be this high. Healthcare is incredibly expensive, and older people have very expensive healthcare bills. Just a typical bottle of high blood pressure medication is over $1,200. They can't just keep living like they gotta go. And when they go,
Your issue is people are living too long.
No, that's
and
why
not the fact.
that's why Social Security, right, is underfunded. That's why the cost keeps going up 6.2%. It could be as much as 6.5%.
What about
by
the
time Trump is
$1,200
gone.
bottle of medicine that they need?
That is overpriced. I'm not saying that's not a problem as well. What I am saying is that it's not going to be there for us. We have to quit pretending that this pot
This is
exists
true.
and quit producing fake bills.
Me and
and
my
start
dad
creating
have this
actual
fight all the time.
value.
Like, we're
So
not
we
going to
gotta kill
get
off
it.
the old people?
No, what I'm saying
Sir.
is that we have to fix this problem. We have to stop. We can't pretend that Social Security is going to be around forever. It was a terrible idea.
So
It needs to
you
be
think that
reformed.
the social programs that we have are contributing to the reason why we may not have certain things in the future that we have paid into or contributed to in our lives thus far?
No, I think the real problem is that America is no longer able to compete with what makes money now, which there are certain types of fields, certain industries that are going to make money now that are making money. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. People who are actually making six figures in these certain types of fields and areas. There are ways to create value. Americans have not prioritized those sufficiently enough. When we talked about education like 2 weeks ago or so, I was so frustrated that the two doctors here were saying that's such a radical idea that we just start like letting actual business people teach business to kids and like actually start telling kids about things that they need to know, like how to actually create value or how to code or how to do this or how to do that. There will come a time where that is a basic language, like as basic as English, and we have no interest in reforming our education system so that kids can compete. Like I think our
I would
problem
agree
is
with
that
that.
Americans are still prioritizing 12 years of social studies and I don't know, English literature instead of things that are actually going to help them to
Careful,
produce.
literary studies major.
Listen, people are. Listen, I want people to be literate. I just think
Sorry,
that there's a
hush.
level at which there's a diminishing return, right? Because people are doctorates and they still say library. So what we need is for people to do things that can create value.
Library is not a dirty word. I just wanna say
Library
that.
is not a word at all.
I don't
Library.
think there will ever be
'Cause I can
a
spell it.
I don't think there will ever be an area of study that you can say will not give you a return. I don't think, especially when you come for history and language arts and things of that nature. Science and math are absolutely important, but they are not the end-all, be-all.
But what kind of return are we talking about? Because you can't take a return for 12 years of history to Georgia Power and say, listen, I can tell you everything about 1902, but I don't got my bill this month.
Now, at the same token, teaching kids how to understand the dynamics of media would be something they probably should start
I think
teaching
so,
because
teaching people
most
how
of the
to
people that are on Forbes
communicate,
list.
how to work in language, how to adequately express yourself and say what you mean and mean what you say is important. Those skills come with languages, with the arts.
They do. And I'm not believing in doing away with them. I think we need a reprioritization.
You just think
severe.
they're not as important.
I don't think we need as much as we have. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I actually won't disagree with that. I will not disagree with that because I do agree with you. I think that a lot of things that we've set in place worked for a time period in a decade that not necessarily
to
that
produce
we absolutely
factory workers.
Yeah, that we absolutely don't live in anymore. We don't have plants anymore. We're more customer service based. I agree
like
with
the
that.
things that you do now, or the fact that like I have an S corp now, or the fact that you had a nonprofit before, or the fact that you run your own podcast now, like that. Those are entrepreneurial things. Those involve learning something about the law, about business, about the economy, about marketing, all those sorts of things. How much of that did you get from K through 12? Nada, except maybe speaking. That was it.
That just means
so
that
you
K
could have
through
stopped me
12
there.
K through 12 just needs to be
reform, overhaul, flipped
absolutely
upside down,
overhauled
bent
and
over.
reformed, but that is not to say that every single subject you learn cannot add value to your life. Absolutely, we've moved into a new technological age. However, everything can be adapted into that technological age.
Assuming that the gatekeepers are willing to change, which at this point they're not.
No. That is true.
That's the problem. The gatekeepers who
part
guard
of the
education.
reason for that, they have pensions. Teachers get pensions. They get free health care. They get public loan forgiveness. If you work for the government, you have very little to do except for clock in at 9, clock out at 5, and get 2 summers off, 2 months off a year.
I'm confused. Which teachers are you talking about?
Public school employees and government employees. Federal employees.
You think public
period.
school teachers are Gucci? You think they?
I think that's very cushy. I think it's cushy for the free health care, for the fact that people in the private sector can't always afford their health care, and they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah,
so the teachers selling
I do part ways. That's where we part ways. Now I agree with the benefit package, but as far as the it does, but that's fine. But the living wage that they get is a joke when you compare it to anything
that I
else.
saw at the Apple Store and at Quick Trip over summer break, so that they could still have a roof over their heads. You think they were good?
I think that's important to understand that every job is not meant to sustain a high quality of living per se. Like you can have a Mercedes.
No. What we're not going to do is say that. We're not going to say that because teachers are educating our youth. They are very necessary. People will always need teachers.
But I actually disagree with that. I think professors could be. I think people that are in the field could teach kids. I don't think you have to be a teacher to teach kids.
I'm gonna tell you what that's not possible. I'm gonna tell you what that's not possible.
I think they would if you slide them some health care. There's people at Goldman Sachs that don't have. That can't afford
their companies will not sacrifice their bottom line towards education.
But people would want not towards education. But I think people would say, you know what? I think for this next year, I would rather have healthcare than do what I'm doing right now. So if I can come back, if I can work some sort of program out where it's like just like in college, people from the field come in and they'll teach a class for a semester. People would gladly say, you know what? I would like to have healthcare for a year,
which is fine. Which is fine for high school. I don't have a problem with that for high school. But anything beneath that, there's a certain level of training and empathy that you need to teach middle school kids and little kids. Well, like I said, high school kids is fine, but anything beneath that,
not everybody can work with that age range of kids, and it's so important that you reach them at an early age. That absolutely takes a specialized degree and a specialty
beneath high school. Now, I don't have a problem with 9 to 12, but beneath high school, you gotta have a special skill set.
How would we know if we haven't tried it? How would we know if we haven't tried it?
I'm not willing to try it. I'm not willing to sacrifice kids.
Sacrifice kids. We're not asking them to go fend for themselves.
I mean, in essence, if you go into a elementary school,
I think we're playing with their
no
futures
training
now because we're putting them in 12 years of social studies and they can't code, and then they're at Home Depot with PhDs whining.
Absolutely not.
First of all, Home Depot.
Number one, I have younger siblings and they are in grade school right now and they are absolutely learning the coding that you're talking about. It's incorporated into everything they do.
Yeah, when's the last time you been to elementary school?
Not in public schools.
It's incorporated
some APS schools that we just talked about.
It's incorporated into their language arts. Everything they do is on a tablet now. They're given computers. They're not carrying home textbooks like we were. Everything they are doing is technological now. They're moving along with the age and trying as best as they can with the funds that their school have been given. I'm not sure when's the last time you stepped into
the doctors we just had here said that in APS they do not teach coding from K through 12. Period.
Well, now okay.
Because my siblings are
those two doctors
coding.
just said that.
All right, so now I worked in an APS school. I worked in an APS school, and I was actually impressed because again I come from the country. So the APS school I worked at, they had 3 floors. Each floor was a different discipline. So one floor was CAD, one floor was medical, and one floor was actually law. And that's what they taught accordingly. I was actually blown away. They actually, which really blew me away, had a mock courtroom on the law floor. And I was like, wow.
Wait, this is grad school?
No, this was a high school here
That's awesome.
in Georgia. Actually, I can say it because it's not a big deal. I worked at South Atlanta High. South Atlanta High had 3 different floors. It was CAD, I think it was medical, and it was law. And their law floor had a mock courtroom in it, which I was blown away at. So there are schools that are doing certain things. I agree with you. There needs to be some kind of reform on the way we do education, but I can't necessarily say that any. And again, I agree with you in high school, but middle school and elementary schools, there's a specific skill set that you do need to be able to have empathy and the understanding necessary to rear kids.
The safe haven
Not
is
to mention that there's still magnet school programs that help with this. Not to mention there's a STEM high school right up the street from the station. Like, these things are being incorporated into K through 12. I think.
But on that note, because we don't have a minute left, so everybody give your final thoughts. You have 30 seconds. Starting on this side. Final thoughts from the day.
I finally get my spotlight. I feel good.
Oh, God, next.
And that's what you did.
My takeaway is to not believe everything that you read. Everything. Don't believe everything on the internet, even if you see a celebrity post about it, because you could get scammed and end up in jail, like Bill McFarland.
Right, and Ja Rule.
You didn't hear about the Fire Festival?
Oh,
Yeah.
My second piece of final thoughts is 2020, especially if you're a Democrat, this is a really great time to consider people who are outside of the box. I very much support Cuban running for president, very much support Dwayne Johnson running for president. I think the Democrats have a real shot at beating Trump if they decide to pick somebody different who's a celebrity.
I said 30 seconds.
That's it. Celebrity,
All right.
not a politician.
Michelle.
I would just like to thank everyone for the healthy discourse we've had today, and I encourage people to read, truly understand what's important to you, and get the information that is out there to make an informed decision in our upcoming elections.
All right, so Full House, I actually like when the interns are in here. They actually bring so much more perspective. We might have to do this on Fridays. We'll see. So on Monday, as usual, the Leadership Blend TV show airs at 3:30 on the Now Network. Check your local listings for cable stations. It's at 3:30, so and times, because I forgot different codes and stuff. So check it for channels and times. And, hey, we'll see you on Monday, same time, same place, on the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.